Chapter 32-33. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation no challenge at all. Ling Hu Chong. This time, the name that appeared on the top of the second section of the Medicine King's tablet was exactly the same as before. It was also the same 3 words that were shining brightly like stars. This meant that this burly man named Ling Hu Chong, who could pull out a suspicious black object the size of a mung bean from his nose, had once again passed the test perfectly. And it was the second test. The only difference was that he used more than 40 minutes in the first test, and only 10 minutes in the second test. It was simply unbearable. Many people around Tuoba Square had already vomited blood due to anger. If this second level was perfectly cleared by a refined and elegant gentleman, they could more or less accept it. However, this boorish man in front of them was simply too different. Moreover, he only used 10 minutes to perfectly clear the second level. All of this was too shocking, too shocking. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Puff. After finally stopping from vomiting, Tuoba Linfeng was once again shocked by the name of Ling Hu Chong on the Medicine King's tablet. He roared like a madman. Finally, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. This was forced out by anger. Even Zhao Qianru from Bodhi Technology, Yuan Zhua from Celestial Biotech, and Dongfang Lin from Shenong Biotech were all shocked at this moment. Then, a touch of unwillingness appeared on their faces. They all gritted their teeth and extended their divine sense towards the Medicine King's tablet, including the purplish warbler Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Changyu Xiaotian. All of them did the same. They were really unwilling and thought that the second test might be easier. This time they wanted to give it a try. Soon rays of green light shot over and enveloped their bodies. This group of people closed their eyes and began to pass the second test. Seeing this scene, Yixian curled his lips and disapproved. However, his face still had a completely indifferent expression. He shook his head and said, "Sai, this is too disappointing. There is no challenge at all. Who would have thought that the second test would be easier? It seems that the third test will take less time. It's a bit boring." After saying that, he closed his eyes again. Another ray of green light shot from the Medicine King's tablet in the distance and enveloped his body. Yixian began to pass the third test. Countless experts in the surroundings looked at each other, completely defeated by this scene. Thinking that someone had passed the first 2 Medicine King's tablet perfectly translation, their breathing was extremely rapid. Could the third test be the same? If that was really the case, wouldn't it mean that the Medicine King's tablet would lose its owner? At this moment, all the experts in the square, their hearts were in their mouths. In contrast, Yixian, who had passed the third test in less than 2 ins, unless as he was the Medicine King's was translation as he. To him, the first 2 stages were simply too easy and satisfying. The first test was to test one's memory. Of course, this level of memory was no ordinary test. Hundreds of millions of kinds of herbs and minerals that could be used in medicine, including their detailed medicinal properties, flashed before one's eyes. Even if one was a powerful figure in the universe, it would be impossible to remember half of it. However, this was not a problem for the Devouring system. Who could be like Yixian and bring along a supercomputer? Moreover, it was not an ordinary supercomputer. Its intelligence center was an immortal-level supercomputer. Although it was not as powerful as the intelligence center of the Immortal Star Dynasty's first-class main network, it was already mature. However, an immortal-level expert was an immortal-level expert. Its computing power was unquestionable. Everything that flashed before Yixian's eyes was instantly recorded by the Devouring system. The next test was to randomly pick 10,000 herbs. This was practically cheating. As soon as the Medicine King's tablet picked one, the Devouring system would select the target in Yixian's mind, including the detailed medicinal properties. He just had to read it. The reason why it took him more than 40 minutes was because there were too many herbs. Just using his consciousness to copy them would take so long. As for the second test, it was even easier. The second test gave him 1,000 pill formulas. Of course, they were all incomplete. They all lacked a certain herb, mineral, or ferocious beast materials that could be used in medicine. These could be found among the hundreds of millions of herbs provided in the first test. The second test was to test the challenger's understanding of the medicinal properties of these herbs, instead of rote memorization. The challenger was required to analyze these 1,000 pill formulas and finally determine what kind of herb was missing, as well as the exact amount to be used. If there were no mistakes, then the challenger would also pass perfectly. To put it bluntly, this was a kind of calculation ability. Yixian did not care about it at all, and directly threw it to the devouring system to calculate. The immortal level supercomputer's calculation ability was obvious. Yixian only spent 10 minutes to perfectly pass this test because every time the devouring system calculated a herb, he would immediately copy the answer with his consciousness. In addition, there were only 1,000 herbs to copy and hand in, which was much less than the first test. Therefore, he felt that it was easier and easier, and he accidentally passed perfectly. The reason why he said that it was too unchallenging wasn't because he was pretending. It was because of Yixian's true feelings. However, in the ears of the other experts around Tuoba Plaza, it was truly hateful. Many of the experts had long since suffocated to the point that their faces were flushed red as they glared fiercely at Yixian. For the first time they realized that some people with a rough appearance, who seemed to speak whatever they wanted, and who had no shrewdness at all were sometimes so hateful. This time Yixian started after Tuoba Linfeng and the others. Of course, the latter group of 16 was challenging the second test, while Yixian was already at the third test. Yixian's test had only started for less than 5 minutes when Tuoba Linfeng was the first of the 16 to open his eyes. There were 1,000 incomplete pill formulas, and he could only analyze up to the 50th one. He could not continue after that, so he was directly expelled. This time he did not leave his name on the list and was eliminated. He did not even have the qualifications to challenge the third test. If he wanted to challenge the next test, he had to leave his name on the list in the previous test to qualify. As the young master of the Tuoba family and the future successor, his level should not be bad to this extent. He could still leave his name on the list in the second test. Unfortunately, everything before had already messed up his mind, and he could no longer perform normally. How is this possible? In a short span of 10 minutes, he actually managed to deduce all of the 1,000 incomplete pill formulas. Furthermore, even the amount of missing medicinal herbs was accurately calculated without error. Chapter 32-34. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The ancient tablet recognizes its owner within 10 minutes. The other 15 people had also finished their challenges one after another. About half of them had left their names on the second stage. In just a few minutes, another 6 or 7 names were added to the second area in the center of the Medicine King's tablet, causing the surrounding powerhouses to exclaim in amazement. But of course, the only one who passed perfectly and whose name shone like a bright star was still Ling Huchong. Among the 6 or 7 people who still left their names on the second stage, there were Zhao Qianru from Bodhi Technology, Yuan Zhua from Celestial Biotech, Dongfang Lin from Shenong Biotech, and Purplish Warbler. But none of them planned to continue to challenge the third stage. At this time, the group looked at Yixian, who had started to challenge the third stage with his eyes closed. They all shook their heads and smiled bitterly. Their tone was unprecedentedly disappointed and dispirited. This brother Ling Hu is really amazing. He only knew the difficulty of this stage after he tried the second stage himself. I didn't expect him to pass perfectly in just 10 minutes. That's right. Out of 1,000 incomplete pill recipes, as long as you can fill up 1/10 of them, that is, 100 of them, you can leave your name on the list. I can only barely do this. Moreover, although the medicinal herbs of those 100 pill recipes have been filled up, the dosage still needs to be considered. I didn't give a detailed dosage at all. But he passed perfectly in such a short time. Not only did he fill in the missing medicinal herbs, but the dosage was also correct. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it at all. It's too monstrous. There's no need to try the third stage anymore. With our level, we don't even have the possibility of leaving our names on the list. If I'm not mistaken, the third stage should require the challenger to create a perfect new pill formula out of thin air, based on the 100 million types of medicinal herbs and minerals from before. The number should be 100. 100 people? It's easy to say. Which of the pill formulas that have been handed down today haven't been refined and tested by generations of alchemists and alchemists before they finally become perfect? Even a single pill formula needs many years of verification. This kind of creation of a pill formula out of thin air is the most difficult. It's impossible to create one, let alone 100. I reckon that even this stunning Linghu brother would lose in this round. This is simply an impossible mission. But even so, to be able to perfectly pass the first two tests, it's enough for him to leave his name in the annals of history, becoming famous in a single battle. They were right. The third stage of the Medicine King's tablet did indeed require the challenger to create an unprecedented pill formula out of thin air, using the hundreds of millions of herbs and minerals that could be used in the first stage. There were only 100 of them. Don't look at how these 100 pill formulas seem to be very few in number. The Medicine King Steel's requirements were extremely strict. 100 pill formulas, as long as he could complete 10, he would be able to leave his name on the Medicine King's steel. If he wanted to pass the test perfectly and make the tablet of the Medicine Kings recognize him as his master, then he would have complete control over the core area of the Medicine King's remains and obtain the final inheritance. In this third test alone, he would have to obtain all 100 pill recipes, and every single one of them would have to be perfect. All the herbs that made up the pill formula had to be one type more or one type less, and the amount had to be precise to the point that it couldn't be made into a pill formula. To put it simply, it was to say that the 100 pill formulas required by the Medicine King's tablet were all of the kind that had been passed down through the ages in reality, and had been tempered by generations of alchemists before they were finally finalized. This was definitely an impossible task. Even if it was a true alchemist master, it wouldn't be difficult for him to assemble 100 pill formulas out of thin air in a short period of time. However, if he wanted to ensure that these pill formulas were as incisive as those ancient formulas that had been passed down through the ages, and that the amount couldn't be increased or decreased, that was absolutely unrealistic. But for Yi Xian this wasn't a problem. In fact, to put it bluntly, this kind of new pill formula that came out of thin air, and at the same time determining the most incisive ratio of medicinal ingredients, was a kind of calculation. This kind of calculation an ordinary superbrain might not be able to do it. There were too many possibilities and it was ever-changing. If he had to calculate 100 rough pill formulas at the same time in a short period of time, even the superbrain would break down. However, the central intelligence of Yi Xian's personal communication system was an immortal-grade superbrain, and it had already entered the growth stage and was no longer the fragmentary grade it was before. Could barely do this. It was just that the time taken was a little too long. Until 4 hours later, his third attempt was still ongoing. The 99 perfect pill formulas from before had already been successfully submitted and approved by the Medicine King's tablet. Now, Yi Xian was going through the perfect calculation of the last pill formula. As long as the calculation was completed, he would be able to pass the third round perfectly. This was definitely the rhythm of making the Medicine King's tablet recognize him as its owner. The outside world was already in an uproar. Previously, those who had gathered at Tuoba Plaza were only a few rogue cultivators, as well as the younger generation of the 16 great powers. They had also come to try to pass the round, and wanted to leave their names on the tablet. But now, with Ling Huchong perfectly passing the first 2 rounds of the Medicine King's tablet, the 16 great powers were all present. The leaders of the great powers were all shocked, and they all rushed over. Looking around, the huge Tuoba Plaza was completely filled with a sea of people, and there was no empty space at all. There were even some powerhouses hovering in the air, but they were all in the distance. At least hundreds of thousands of starry sky powerhouses had gathered here, and they were all waiting for the result of Yi Xian's third round. In the void far away, Clear River Pavilion's manager Hu and Clear River Pavilion's master Mr. Hu were hidden in the void, quietly looking at Tuoba Plaza, and they were silent for a long time. After a while, Manager Hu asked tentatively, "Mr. In your opinion, can this guy who calls himself Ling Huchong be the descendant of the main bloodline of our Ling Hu clan that escaped back then? The main bloodline took away the clan's alchemy inheritance back then, and it should be able to cultivate such a peerless genius. Other than that, I really can't think of any other power that could have such an achievement. Even the alchemy bloodline of the cultivation camp can't do it." This matter can basically be confirmed. Clear River Pavilion's master nodded, and his tone was filled with joy and excitement. "Old master, although the Medicine King's remnant book that you obtained from the periphery of the Medicine King's remains is only an incomplete inheritance, but if you put in a certain amount of effort and time, you can indeed cultivate such an amazing genius on the path of alchemy. I am very clear about this point." If there is no accident, Ling Huchong should be the descendant of the young lord after he escaped back then. Today our Ling Hu clan is finally going to rise again. Manager Hu immediately became excited. Obviously, he had already made his decision in his heart, but he respected Mr. Hu's opinion, so he had not said it. Now that the other party had expressed his opinion, he immediately could not hold it in, and his voice was trembling. You mean? Send the order. We will arrange the forces at the Medicine King's remains, and fully assist the young lord in obtaining the complete Medicine King's inheritance in the core area. Chapter 32-35. A sensation in the imperial capital at this moment. The sky was already dark, but Tuoba Square was still surrounded by hundreds of thousands of starry sky powerhouses. Even at night, this place was still as bright as day. As the imperial capital, the lighting at night was very bright. However, the most dazzling thing was still the two names on the ancient tablet of the Medicine Kings, which were exactly the same. Ling Huchong. It emitted an intense starlight that was as bright as the stars. At this moment, there was no one else attempting the trial in Tuoba Square. From the towering Medicine King's steel, only a single streak of green light shot out, landing on Yixian, who was around 100 meters away. It formed a protective barrier, protecting Yixian, who stood there with his hands behind his back like a statue from the outside world. The gazes of hundreds of thousands of starry sky experts were all focused on him. Ever since the leaders of the 16 great clans had arrived, Tuoba Linfeng, Shenyuan Ziying, and the other heirs of the great clans had all returned to their respective camps. But they were still paying attention to Yixian. The requirements to pass the 3 stages of the ancient Medicine King's tablet had already been spread out, and the entire Heaven Battle Planet knew about it. Even the requirements to pass the 3rd stage had been revealed. The 2 elders of the Tuoba family who had left their names in the 2nd stage had tried to pass the 3rd stage, but they failed in the end. The 2 of them had created a few unprecedented Dan recipes, but they were not recognized by the Medicine King's ancient tablet, and the number did not reach 10. Therefore, he didn't even have the qualifications to leave his name in the 3rd stage. But even so, after passing the 3rd stage, he would at least know what the requirements of the 3rd stage were. It was precisely because of the 2 of them that the 3rd trial's requirements were revealed and spread. This caused a huge commotion at that time. When all the experts in the surroundings thought about how Yixian was currently creating a new pill formula, and how it had already been 4 hours, they all felt a chill run down their backs. That sort of thing required a lot of calculation ability. Every minute and every second consumed a lot of mental energy. Even the Universe Almighties would be horrifying if they could last for 2 hours. They would use up a huge amount of divine consciousness, but Ling Huchong had clearly lasted for 4 hours. It was still going on. He was simply a monster. No one suspected that Yixian was dawdling in his work or taking a break after deducing. That was not allowed. The 2 elders of the Tuoba family who had once passed through the 3rd level had the most right to speak and denied this possibility. At this moment, the head of the Tuoba family, Tuoba Xiong, the head of the Gongyang family, Gongyang Buhui, and the head of the Longyu family, Longyu Jinglong, were gathered together. They coldly watched from the sidelines as Yixian was enveloped by the green light that shot out from the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. Tuoba family head, in your opinion, can this kid make the Medicine King's ancient tablet automatically recognize him as its owner? After a short while, the patriarch of the Chongyu family, Chongyu Jinglong, asked in a low voice, his tone full of worry, I am now worried about the gains and losses. I hope this boy succeeds because then our chances of entering the core area of the Medicine King's remains will skyrocket. But at the same time, I don't want him to succeed because once he succeeds it means, don't tell me that if he can't pass the 3rd level, you will be relieved? The head of the Gongyang family, Gongyang Buhui, took over the conversation and snorted lightly. Don't regret what you have done. Even if he can't pass the 3rd level, being able to pass the first 2 levels perfectly is enough to prove his identity as a bastard of the Linghu bloodline. Other than the Linghu family, who else can cultivate such a monster? Let's act according to the circumstances. Tuoba Xiong, who had been silent all this time, also spoke at this time. He was obviously the leader of the 3, and his tone revealed an unquestionable decisiveness. No matter what, this person's appearance is a good thing for us. He can have such amazing alchemy skills, which means that the Medicine King's incomplete book that was not found in the Linghu family must have fallen into his hands. Even if this time we can't enter the core area of the ruins to obtain the complete book, at least we can still obtain the incomplete book. Whether or not he can pass the third level, we must bring this boy along when we explore the Medicine King's remains in 10 days. It would be best if we can use him to enter the core area of the ruins. If not, we can just destroy him in the ruins and obtain the Medicine King's incomplete book. Gong Yongbuhui and Chang Yu Jinglong turned to look at each other, and a ray of light flashed in their eyes, and they didn't say anything more. At the same time, in the area where the experts of the Xinyuan family were, the old Xinyuan family master stared at Yi Xian, who was covered in the green light of the Medicine King's ancient tablet, and his eyes were shining with green light. TSK, this Linghu nephew, the more this old man looks at him, the more he is pleasing to the eye. As he whispered to himself, the old Xinyuan family master seemed to suddenly think of something, and turned to look at the purplish warbler beside him, and asked tentatively, "Girl, what do you think of him? Is he okay?" The purplish warbler was also a little absent-minded at this moment. She didn't know why, but when she saw Ling Huchong, she always felt a sense of familiarity in her heart, and she always thought of Yi Xian, but the gap between the two was so big. Although they were both monstrous, their styles were completely different, and their fields of expertise were completely different. This made her feel very conflicted, and she completely lost her ability to judge. At this moment, when she heard the old Xinyuan family master's words, she didn't think too much about it, and just took it literally. In addition, she had something on her mind, so she subconsciously replied, "He is indeed monstrous. This kind of person is too amazing." This was the truth. With the talent and foundation that he displayed, even the words monstrous and amazing were not enough to describe him. The old Xinyuan family master clearly misunderstood her, and hearing the purplish warbler's evaluation of Yi Xian, coupled with the fact that she was staring at him, her expression was clearly a little absent-minded, as if she was infatuated. This made the Xinyuan family master very satisfied. No matter what, there was finally hope that this silly daughter of his would not hang herself on a tree. Long Xian, that playboy radish, get lost. Today, this old man has finally found a good son-in-law that is compatible with this silly girl, and I definitely won't let him go so easily. Thinking of this, the old Xinyuan family master was immediately overjoyed. If this silly girl could form a good relationship with Ling Huxian, all of the previous effects would basically be resolved. Look, although my little girl is a little silly and has been fooled by that playboy Long Xian to the point of death, and has completely embarrassed this old man, in the end, she has finally found the right person for her, the ideal husband. In his opinion, this Ling Huxian in front of him was not inferior to Prince Xian in terms of talent, and was also a good match for him in terms of expertise. He was also in the field of medicine refinement, and had a common language with the purplish warbler, and was also a good match for the Xinyuan family. There was nothing more suitable than this. As he thought about it, the patriarch of the Xinyuan family actually raised his head and laughed loudly in the end, causing Xinyuan Ziying, who was beside him, to be suddenly shocked and feel a sense of confusion. Chapter 32-36. Everyone's attention at the top of the ancient tablet of the Medicine Kings. Below the 3 words Ancient Tablet of the Medicine Kings, there was nothing, but at this moment a name suddenly appeared. Ling Huchong. And the moment this name appeared, it shone brightly. Like the other 2 levels below, it was at the center of the top level. For a time, the entire ancient tablet of the Medicine Kings had the same name on all 3 levels. They were all at the top of the level, shining brightly like stars. This meant that Ling Huchong had finally passed the 3rd level. Even if it was the 3rd level, he had passed it perfectly. In the void far away, manager whose tears flowed down his face. It is indeed the young master. With such talent, who else could it be other than my Linghu family's young master? The heavens have pity on us. Even Mr. Hu was inexplicably excited, muttering to himself, "After 2,000 years of silence, is the Linghu family finally going to shine again? Old master, Hu Qing has finally lived up to your expectations. I have waited for the young master to return." At the same time, the entire Tuoba Plaza fell into a dead silence. In the area where the 3 elite families of the Heaven Battle Planet gathered, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Changyu Xiaotian clenched their fists, their eyes full of unwillingness and dejection. The 3 elite families of the patriarchs turned their heads to look, their eyes flashing, their faces gloomy to the extreme. Sure enough, that little bastard is back. This matter is good as well. Back then, a young master of the direct bloodline escaped. This young man should be a descendant of his bloodline and brought back the inheritance. This time, the Tuoba bloodline will all perish in the Heaven Battle Planet. It's time to settle the matters of the past. Humph, kid, don't be complacent. 10 days later we will enter the ruins. When your light and heat dissipate, it will be the time of death. In addition, in the Shenyuan family's area, the purplish warbler's eyes burst with splendor. Although she had guessed it when it really happened, she was still shocked. At this moment she muttered to herself, I have always thought that my talent in alchemy is amazing. But today I have met this Ling Huchong and I feel so frustrated. I can't accept it. Yes, we have to submit. On the side, the head of the Shenyuan family took over the conversation. He seemed to be quite satisfied with the attitude of the purplish warbler. He grinned and said, Girl, in the future, you will be a good wife at home. How can you not accept it? In your father's opinion, Ling Hu's virtuous son-in-law is quite good. What's wrong with having a rough temperament? If you want to use gentleness to conquer strength, you have to submit to him first, then you can make him submit to you in the future. Purplish warbler's eyes widened, #yen%. It was also at this time that the ancient tablet of the Medicine King, which had just appeared on the top floor, suddenly changed again. Swish! A blinding ray of light shot up into the sky. At this moment, all the names on the 3 levels of the ancient tablet of the Medicine Kings disappeared. Immediately after that, 3 huge ancient characters suddenly appeared. The character Ling appeared on the top layer, occupying the entire top layer. The middle layer had the word fox, and it was the same. The word Chong at the bottom also occupied the entire area. Ling Hu Chong. These 3 big words were about 10 feet in size. They were many times bigger than the 3 words on the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. These 3 words had already occupied the entire surface of the ancient tablet. At the same time, it emitted an endless amount of light. This meant that the ancient tablet of the Medicine King had been conquered. Now that these 3 words had appeared, occupying the entire surface of the ancient tablet, it was clear that the ancient tablet was about to recognize its owner. At the same time, the green light that enveloped Yixian suddenly retracted and entered the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. Yixian opened his eyes. The system beep sounded in his mind at this moment. Ding! Congratulations to the host for perfectly passing the test. You have received the request of the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. Do you want to accept it immediately? Accept immediately. Keep the ancient tablet. Yixian's heart was beating wildly. He would not be polite. This was originally the Tuoba family's public declaration. Since he had done it, it would be a waste not to take it. He immediately gave the order to accept the ancient tablet's recognition and keep it into his body. Xiao. Following Yixian's order, the engulfing system immediately connected with the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. The latter turned into a green light and directly entered Yixian's body and disappeared. At this moment, the entire Tuoba square was dead silent. Yixian, everyone's attention was on him. Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong's eyes twitched slightly. Although this ancient tablet of the Medicine King was taken out by the Tuoba family from the ancient tablet of the Medicine King, the person who was keeping it now was the descendant of the Ling Hu family. That year, the Ling Hu family's downfall was caused by the 3 families working together. Hence, the unwillingness in Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong's heart was not one bit weaker than Tuoba Xiong's. But the 3 of them held back and did not flare up. They even had a smile on their faces, as if they had seen the rise of the younger generation and were comforted by it. However, in their eyes, the glorious Yixian was no different from a dead person. At least that was what they thought. His heart was filled with hatred, but his face was brimming with a kind smile. Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui, and Longyu Jinglong soared towards Yixian, who was in the center of the plaza. The other patriarchs of the dozen or so top-notch families did the same. All of them had smiles on their faces and didn't fall behind. They immediately flew towards Yixian. At this moment, Yixian was definitely a super delicious piece of meat in their eyes. One should know that this ancient tablet of the Medicine King was the only key to enter the core of the ancient tablet of the Medicine King's remains. Now that the ancient tablet had recognized its owner, It meant that Yi Xian could successfully enter the core of the ancient tablet of the Medicine King's remains. Not only that, he could bring a group of people with him. Of course, the ancient tablet of the Medicine King's remains had a restriction on the strength of those who entered. They could not exceed the Black Hole realm. Therefore, they could only be juniors. For the leaders of the 16 top families, being on good terms with Yi Xian was related to whether their juniors would be able to enter the core of the ancient tablet of the Medicine King's remains with Yi Xian. This was the only hope to obtain the ultimate inheritance of the Medicine King. Girl, let's go and accompany your father to have a look. Tuoba Xiong Gongyang Buhui, Chang Yu Jinglong and the others are all green with envy. This is not a good sign. Turning his head to look at the purplish warbler beside him, the head of the Xianyuan family could be said to be complacent at this moment. He had long regarded Yi Xian, who was also known as Ling Huchong, as his new son-in-law. The more he looked at him, the more he liked him. Seeing that the purplish warbler was rather resistant, he immediately lowered his voice and persuaded in a low voice, "Don't you want the inheritance of the Medicine King? That ancient tablet of the Medicine King is only the key to opening the core of the ancient tablet of the Medicine King's remains. It does not mean that you will definitely obtain the inheritance. Apart from him, he can also bring 19 companions below the origin realm with him. Everyone will have a chance to obtain the complete inheritance of the Medicine King." The purplish warbler was immediately moved. Seeing this scene, old man Xianyuan grinned again. "So the two of you need to cultivate your relationship first. There are still 10 days, so there is still time. When the time comes, the two of you will work together to fight against the enemy. The inheritance of the Medicine King must be obtained." Chapter 32-37. Fragrant Meat Cake. Ha ha ha. This ancient tablet of the Medicine King was something that my Tuoba family had painstakingly obtained from the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. Unfortunately, although my Tuoba family had obtained some inspiration from the ancient tablet of the Medicine King, we were able to make a breakthrough in the research of the gene fluid and came up with the 10th level gene fluid. However, the talents of the experts in the family were limited, and in the end, we were unable to pass all 3 tests and make the tablet recognize us as its master. Landing on Yi Xian's side, Tuoba Xiong raised his head and laughed loudly. He had an extremely open-minded and extraordinary bearing as he sized Yi Xian up from head to toe. He nodded repeatedly. This old man placed this tablet in the plaza with the goal of finding a good owner for it. "Today my wish has come true. Little friend, with your talent, since you have obtained the Medicine King's ancient tablet, you naturally have the qualifications to explore the Medicine King's ruins with us." "That's right, little friend must not miss this opportunity." The head of the Gongyang family, Gongyang Buhui, said with a smile, looking at Yi Xian with admiration. "This tablet is the key to opening the core of the Medicine King's ruins. With this key, the one who refines the tablet can bring 19 companions below the origin realm into the core of the Medicine King's ruins. We have decided to start the exploration in 10 days. Little friend, you can stay with us in the Tuoba family for the next few days, and we can exchange our knowledge of alchemy. Since the Medicine King's ruins only allows experts below the origin realm to enter, us old fellows obviously won't have this opportunity." With a similar smile on his face, the clan head of the Changyu family, Changyu Jinglong, chuckled and said, "Hee hee, the younger generation is replacing the older one, the future belongs to you young generation. This time, each of the 16 top families will send a Black Hole Realm Junior to follow this little friend into the world of medicine. You must be friendly and support each other. Only then can you successfully obtain the King of Medicine's inheritance and benefit the entire human race." In just a few simple words, he had already explained everything clearly. Moreover, he had even blocked the path of retreat, making it impossible for Yi Xian to refuse. Otherwise, he wouldn't be willing to benefit the human race. Otherwise, he would be able to obtain the Medicine King's tablet that the other party had painstakingly obtained without thinking of returning the favor. The patriarchs of the other dozen or so top-notch families seemed to be very satisfied with these words, and echoed one after another. As for Tuoba Linfeng and the other heirs of the 16 great families, they all had different expressions on their faces. Looking at the current situation, Yi Xian was like a moon surrounded by stars. It felt like he had leapt to become an existence on equal footing with the patriarchs of the various major clans. At this moment, all the major clans were scrambling to converse with Yi Xian, but they could only accompany him from behind. For no apparent reason, they felt as if they were a generation lower than Yixian. This feeling made them feel stifled and extremely uncomfortable. Yixian laughed coldly in his heart. Actually, he had never planned to leave after obtaining the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. At this moment, this ancient monument had shrunk countless times, turning into a simple and unadorned little green monument, floating in his sea of consciousness. What surprised Yixian was that although this monument was not an item from the Desolate Era, but from the Ancient Era, after the Desolate Era, its grade was not low. It seemed to represent an extremely important inheritance. After entering his sea of consciousness, it was like the ancient Tower of Inheritance, floating in the central region of Yixian's sea of consciousness, standing side by side with the Rai Di seal. It was not like the little golden bow and the black gold dragon scale, which were all around the sea of consciousness. From this, it could be seen that the Medicine King's inheritance it represented was not to be underestimated. Just based on this point, Yixian would definitely not give up this opportunity to enter the Medicine King's ruins. He had to go in and explore, and obtain the complete Medicine King's inheritance. According to his estimates, as long as he could do this, he would be able to concoct a level 10 liquid, level 11 liquid, or even a higher level of genetic cultivation liquid. In this way, the path of genetic evolution would be unstoppable. Yixian would be able to continue on this path. This was too important. In the face of such an opportunity, not to mention leaving by himself, even if he was chased away with a broom, Yixian would not leave. It just so happened that in these 10 days, he could stay in the Tuoba family to eat and drink for free. With his current status, the spirit wine and delicacies served by the Tuoba family would obviously not be too bad. Yixian had already left an image of a big foodie in the Clear River Pavilion. Even if the Tuoba family opened their mouth wide, ordering dragon liver today and wind marrow tomorrow, it would not seem too deliberate. No one would think that he was doing it on purpose. Anyway, he did not like Tuoba Linfeng, so he could use this opportunity to viciously disgust the Tuoba family. What's more, in these 10 days, he could also exchange his alchemy experience with the powerhouses of the 16 top families, including the Tuoba family. This was a rare opportunity. After passing the first 3 stages of the Medicine King's tablet, Yixian was already quite skilled in alchemy. Although everything was stored in the database of the Devouring system, he could easily access it at any time. It wasn't a problem at all to fool the experts of the 16 top-notch clans, and take the opportunity to obtain some of the secret alchemy techniques of the clans from their mouths. In short, staying in the Tuoba family for the past 10 days was beneficial and harmless. No matter how Yixian thought about it, he didn't have a reason to refuse, so he immediately agreed with a smile on his face. While agreeing, Yixian casually glanced at Tuoba Linfeng. He suddenly thought of another benefit. Didn't this guy say that he wanted to kill me? Now that I am temporarily staying in the Tuoba family with the status of being on an equal footing with the patriarchs of the various families, the patriarchs must have sent these juniors to build a good relationship. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I can teach them a lesson. Thinking like this, Yixian suddenly smiled even more brilliantly. His eyes were filled with kindness, as if he was looking at his juniors. He swept his gaze over the faces of Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yongji, Changyu Xiaotian, and the other heirs of the various families. Even the purplish warbler was not let go, so as to avoid suspicion. This group of people were also shrewd. They immediately caught something from Yixian's slightly strange gaze. Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yongji, and Changyu Xiaotian were stunned for a moment, and their faces turned white. Although they were not afraid of Yixian, if the other party used this opportunity to teach them a lesson as an elder, it was simply more disgusting than eating a mosquito. What was more speechless was that they could only pinch their noses and endure, unable to do anything. Thinking like this, the 3 of them immediately complained incessantly in their hearts, and their intestines turned green with regret. As for Zhao Qianru from the Imperial Capital's immortal planet Bodhi Technology, Yuan Zhua from Celestial Biotech, and Dongfang Lin from Shenong Biotech, after exchanging glances, they helplessly sighed. They could not blame Yixian, but they hated Tuoba Linfeng. If this time they really suffered in front of Yixian and were treated like a junior, this debt would definitely be put on Tuoba Linfeng's head. It was all because of this kid that they were implicated. Chapter 32-38. Dragon Liver and Phoenix Marrow Feast. Seeing Yixian nod in agreement, Tuoba Xiong Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong immediately beamed with joy. They originally thought that this young master Linghu would not be easy to deal with. After all, the other party had suddenly returned to Heaven Battle Planet at this time. It was impossible to say that he did not know anything about what had happened more than 2,000 years ago. Perhaps he had already regarded the three families as his enemies. After all, although the three families did not make a public appearance, the ones who benefited the most from the fall of the Linghu family were the Tuoba family, Gongyang family, and Changyu family, so there was bound to be some suspicion. But now, this guy who called himself Young Master Linghu did not show the slightest bit of suspicion. Either this person did not suspect them at all, or this person was too shrewd and was a difficult character to deal with. They would rather believe that it was the latter. Therefore, after the three of them secretly exchanged glances, they had already made a tacit decision. Once they entered the core area of the Medicine King's remains, no matter what, they had to get their fellow tribesmen to get rid of this person as soon as possible to prevent future trouble. They were quite confident that they could do that. After all, although the Linghu bloodline had half of the King of Medicine's inheritance and had amazing achievements in the field of alchemy, the young master of the Linghu bloodline, who was born in this generation, was only a third-order black hole. He was too weak and had no resistance at all. He could only be killed. At this time it was not late. Since Yixian had agreed to stay with the Tuoba family for 10 days, participate in the Medicine King's summit 3 days later, and then explore the Medicine King's ruins 10 days later, Tuoba Xiong as the host, naturally had to do his part. He immediately smiled and invited Yixian to the Tuoba family's banquet, and the other masters of the 15 great families would follow along. The large banquet hall had a total of 4 tables. The 16 family heads and Yixian sat at the first table. Below them were 3 tables in a row. One table was for Tuoba Linfeng and the other heirs of the 16 great families, while the other 2 tables were for the backbone of the great families. Each table could seat 20 people, and it was a very large round table, very impressive. Seeing Yixian sitting at the first table with the patriarchs, Tuoba Linfeng and the others below had gloomy expressions on their faces. There was nothing they could do about it. They were in a bad mood, so they might as well not see it and not look over there. Only Xianyuan Ziying would occasionally turn her head to glance at Yixian, who was at the first table. In Tuoba Linfeng's eyes, he thought that she had taken a fancy to Yixian, causing him to become even more depressed. The table full of good wine and dishes had all turned into the same taste in his mouth. It was like chewing wax, there was no difference. Sigh. After eating a few mouthfuls, Yixian suddenly sighed and put down his chopsticks with a look of disinterest. Tuoba Xiong, who was chatting with him, was startled. He suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart, but as the host, it was inappropriate to not ask when the guest suddenly became like this. Thus he braced himself and asked, "Little friend Linghu, what's wrong? Could it be that the dishes are not to your taste? My Tuoba family's private kitchen is the best in Heaven Battle Planet. It's not the chef's problem. In fact, this chef is really amazing. The cooking skills in his hands can be said to be magical. These simple ingredients that are not on the table can be made into so many different styles. This kind of taste is really rare. It really is worthy of being called the Tuoba family's private kitchen." These words were said in a very negative way, but Yixian was so serious and straightforward that no one could tell if he was doing it on purpose. In short, Tuoba Xiong's old face turned green and his eyelids twitched. However, Yixian didn't stop and continued to say, "Everyone, continue to eat. Don't worry about me. I will accompany you first. If you are really hungry later, you can go to the Clear River Pavilion. Although the braised subservient dragon liver there is not good, at least I can eat it and barely cope with it. Besides, it's not like I have to eat every meal. As a cultivator, sometimes when the conditions are not good enough, it's normal for me to cultivate for a few days without eating. Don't worry about me, I'm embarrassed." Hearing this, the masters of the top clans were all stunned. Although the ingredients on this table weren't as rare as the subservient dragon liver, it was still not bad. However, from the words of this chef, it was clear that he was used to eating dragon liver and phoenix marrow feasts. He couldn't even bear to eat a little. If there wasn't dragon liver and phoenix marrow, he would rather not eat it and just treat it as cultivation. As for the table below, Zhao Qianru from Bodhi Technology, Yuan Zhua from Celestial Biotech, and Dongfang Lin from Shinong Biotech exchanged glances with each other with strange expressions on their faces. Xian Yuanziying's eyelids twitched as she subconsciously stole a glance at Yixian. She suddenly felt the suspicion in her heart grow even stronger. This style was becoming more and more similar to that of a shameless person. Tuoba Linfeng was so angry that his face turned green. This was clearly tearing down the Tuoba family's reputation in front of everyone. What did he mean by the chef's cooking skills were amazing and could turn something rotten into something magical? After all this time, the banquet that the Tuoba family used to entertain the masters of the top 15 clans was all rotten ingredients? This kid's words were too infuriating. He simply wanted to strangle him to death on the spot to vent his anger. In fact, Tuoba Xiong was a little suspicious that Yixian was deliberately embarrassing him at this moment. However, it didn't seem like it at all on the surface. He was just so boorish. Besides, he did order a table of the best banquet in the Clear River Pavilion alone, including the braised subservient dragon liver. For that meal, he directly threw out a level 9 colored star core. He couldn't have been planning for this scene at that time, right? This was clearly not possible. Going to a banquet alone and throwing out a level 9 colored star core could only mean that he was a prodigal. Back then, the remnants of the Linghu bloodline did take away a lot of resources, which was enough for the young master of the main bloodline to squander. It seemed that this was a habit that he had long since developed. But even so, it was in the Linghu family. Now this was the Tuoba family. Perhaps no one would tolerate this prodigal young master's temper. Thinking of this, Tuoba Xiong immediately persuaded with a fake smile. Linghu, my young friend, I advise you to eat some. Even if you go back to the Clear River Pavilion, I'm afraid you won't be able to eat that dish. The subservient dragon is not easy to hunt. Only adult subservient dragons can be eaten. They are the supreme fierce beasts of the Tao Insight realm. Even in the Clear River Pavilion, it takes a long time to hunt one. It doesn't matter. Don't worry. As long as I go there, they will definitely find a way to hunt one to satisfy me. Yixian sneered in his heart, but his face showed a big smile. He winked at Tuoba Xiong and lowered his voice. Tuoba family head, have you forgotten? This time there are 20 places to enter the relics. Except for me and your 16 families, there are 17 places in total. There are 3 more places. At most we can give them all to them. It's not a problem to exchange for 3 servings of dragon liver. Chapter 32-39. What kind of father was this? Hearing Yixian's idea, not only Tuoba Xiong, but also Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong wanted to curse him. Indeed, there were 3 more spots, but regarding this matter, they had already discussed it with the other clan masters of the top aristocratic families. It just so happened that the 3 of them would each receive one. As the host, the Tuoba family provided the Medicine King's steel, and took the initiative to share the Medicine King's remains with everyone. They were fully qualified to do so, and the other clan masters of the top aristocratic families also agreed. There was no reason to pick them. But now? For 3 portions of braised subblood dragon liver, the prodigal son in front of them actually wanted to give them to the Clear River Pavilion. If that was the case, wouldn't it mean that the Clear River Pavilion could send 3 people this time? At that time, when they entered the core area of the remains, they would be the only one. They were afraid that the Medicine King's inheritance in the core area would fall into the hands of the Clear River Pavilion. Thinking of this possibility, Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, this prodigal son was straightforward and said it out loud. Otherwise, he would directly go to the Clear River Pavilion to finish the deal without saying anything. At that time, even if Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong wanted to deny it, they couldn't. The pavilion master of the Clear River Pavilion was too mysterious. Even the current crown prince of the Heavenly War Empire didn't dare to offend him, not to mention them. Even if Yixian generously exchanged their benefits for the braised subblood dragon liver, they couldn't compete with the Clear River Pavilion at all. They could only pinch their noses and accept it. They wouldn't be so sad even if they were f***ed by a dog. After so much trouble, it was all for the Clear River Pavilion. Thinking of this, Tuoba Xiong immediately made a decision. He turned around and glanced at Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong beside him, gritting his teeth and saying, Two fellow cultivators, no matter what, we are the hosts after all. It's rare for you to come to the heavenly war planet. How about we share the braised subblood dragon liver? It wasn't that he was trying to share the burden, but that the three families had already formed an alliance. Since the benefits were shared after the matter was settled, why should the Tuoba family be responsible for all three portions of braised subservient dragon liver? An adult subblood dragon was a grotto heaven realm beast. Hunting such an existence would result in death. Moreover, it wasn't just any small fish or shrimp that would die. It was very likely that a grotto heaven realm elder of the clan would die. This? The faces of Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong turned green. The price of losing an elder of the Tao Insight realm was too great. However, if they did not agree, the good fortune in the Medicine King's relic might be taken by the Clear River Pavilion. In the end, the two of them turned their heads and exchanged a look. In the end, they gritted their teeth and agreed. They was could not to be translation. Of the to be was to be as was to were to be to the of was of the family is of? Is? This guy is definitely a jinx. With just a few words, Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu, the top three families of the heaven warring planets, would most likely lose a heavenly passage realm elder. This was simply unimaginable. He had even squandered his family's wealth on other people's side. This was truly a source of calamity. Oh, my fellow Taoist Tuoba, you're too polite. It's not easy to kill a subblood dragon. Braised subblood dragon liver is a top-grade dragon liver, which can only be picked from an adult subblood dragon. That's a supreme fierce beast at the Tao Insight realm. Even if you have a hunting method, it's still very dangerous. Yixian rejoiced in his heart, but on the surface, he appeared to be very polite and moved. As he spoke, he picked up his chopsticks again and ate heartily. All of a sudden, his appetite returned. Oh right, Tuoba family head, if you really want to hunt the hornless dragon, can you leave the 3 hornless dragon horns for me? As you all know, the hornless dragon's horn can be used in medicine. Recently, this young master has been researching the level 10 gene cultivation fluid. The hornless dragon's horn should come in handy. Puff! Hearing this, Tuoba Xiong wanted to spit out blood again. This guy even wants the hornless dragon's horn? And 3 of them? It should be known that half of the reason why he agreed to this was because of the 3 hornless dragon's horn. The level 10 gene cultivation fluid did need the hornless dragon's horn. Although the amount was very small, the Tuoba family's technology of making level 10 gene cultivation fluid was not very stable. Therefore, the consumption of the hornless dragon's horn was not small. Previously, the 2 hornless dragon's horn in the collection of the clan were almost used up. They could only make 3 bottles of level 10 gene cultivation fluid. If they hunted 3 subblood dragons this time, at least the consumption of the hornless dragon's horn would be guaranteed when they made level 10 gene cultivation fluid in the future. If this guy got all the hornless dragon's horn, the clan would risk losing an elder of the Tao Insight realm. Thinking of this, Tuoba Xiong gritted his teeth and hesitated for a long time. Then he said with hatred, "My young friend, our Tuoba family also needs the hornless dragon's horn, and it's an urgent need. So, I can only give you 1.5. Deal. How shameless." Tuoba Xiong suddenly did not want to see this guy's shameless face anymore. He stood up with grief and indignation. "Enjoy your meal, everyone. I suddenly feel a little pain in my liver, so I won't accompany you any longer." Then he flicked his sleeves and left. "My young friend, are you studying level 10 gene cultivation fluid?" As soon as Tuoba Xiong left, Yuan Changfeng, the leader of the celestial master creature from the immortal star, immediately looked at Yixian with shining eyes. "Ha ha ha. Ling Hu, my young friend, is really talented. If you want to study level 10 gene cultivation fluid, you must have the foundation of level 9 gene cultivation fluid. I didn't expect that in addition to the 3 top families of the immortal star and the new Tuoba family, there would be a 5th expert who can make level 9 gene cultivation fluid. Congratulations." Duanmu Liangling, the leader of the Duanmu family from the Heavenly Wind Empire's Heavenly Wind Star, also took over the conversation. As he spoke, he winked at Yixian. Stroking his beard, he said, "My young friend, you should not have a family yet, right? It just so happens that I want to find a son-in-law." "Oh right, my daughter Duanmu Xiaocha is sitting at that table over there. You should have already met her. She is absolutely a heavenly beauty. My young friend, you are worthy of having her. Ba ba ba. You shameless old man, pimping this old man's son-in-law. This is the good son-in-law of the Xianyuan family. Old man Duanmu, don't you have any shame? Hearing Duanmu Liangling's words, the leader of the Xianyuan family was so anxious that his beard trembled. He put down his chopsticks and was about to explode on the spot. Old Xianyuan, who the hell are you calling a pimp? You shameless old man. You dare to say such shameless words in front of the younger generation. Duanmu Liangling was so angry that he almost spat out blood. Seeing that the table was about to be flipped on the spot, the purplish warbler and Duanmu Xiaocha at the other table subconsciously looked at each other. For a moment they felt that they were in the same boat. Their faces were full of shame and anger, and they couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in immediately. Chapter 3240. Dear nephews, after the banquet, the patriarchs and leaders of the top families temporarily left. As for Yi Xian, he'd just been led by the Tuoba family's butler to a quiet small courtyard to stay in. Finally it was quiet. Yi Xian immediately set up a defensive barrier, and began to check the ancient tablet of the Medicine King that was suspended above his sea of consciousness. What made him slightly disappointed was that although the ancient tablet had recognized its owner, no matter how Yi Xian tried to activate it, it remained indifferent. The only information Yi Xian could obtain from the ancient tablet was the hundreds of millions of herbs in the first 3 stages, as well as the minerals that could be used as medicine, the materials from the ominous beasts, and the details of their medicinal properties. All of this was meaningless to him, because the information from the devouring system had already been copied and stored in the central database of the system. If he wanted to check this information, Yi Xian could directly retrieve it from the central database of the devouring system, which was much more convenient and faster than obtaining the information from the ancient tablet of the Medicine King. It seems that this ancient tablet of the Medicine King is really just a key. With it, I can enter the core of the Medicine King's remains. The so-called Medicine King's inheritance will have to be fought for after I enter. Muttering to himself, Yi Xian could not help but sigh faintly. No wonder Tuoba Xiong was so generous and allowed me to refine this ancient tablet of the Medicine King. To them this is just a key. As long as the person who holds the key is in their hands, it will be fine. If I want to obtain the real Medicine King's inheritance, I will have to go through a lot of fighting. Of the 20 spots, I'll take 1, the 16 top-notch clans will take 1 each, and the remaining 3 should be Tuoba clan, Gongyang clan, and Chongyu clan's 3 clans. If there is no accident, the 3 families should have already secretly formed an alliance. That is to say, when the time comes to enter the core of the Medicine King's remains, the 3 families will have 6 Black Hole Realm Juniors. Even if the other 13 great families cooperate, it is impossible for there to be 6 of them. That way, even the distribution of benefits will not be decided. If there are no accidents, at most 2 or 3 of the other 13 top families have reached a cooperation agreement. No matter what, on the surface it looks like the Tuoba family has the upper hand. The Medicine King's inheritance is theirs. It's a pity that Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui, and Chongyu Jinglong made a mistake. In their eyes, I might be the least threatening one since I'm only a rank 3 black hole. But in reality, E6 black hole realm experts? I can use it to train my hands. When the time comes, I'll put on my battle armor and wield my battle weapons, both of which are Quasi-Starry Sky Supreme treasures. On top of that, I'll have the Fallen Heaven Bow's ability. Thinking of this, Yi Xian grinned and said, I'm really looking forward to this battle. After putting this matter aside for the time being, Yi Xian withdrew his divine sense from his knowledge sea and began to focus on studying the billions of new medicinal herbs, minerals, and dire beast materials that had been added to the Devouring System's central database. Not only did the 3 stages of the Medicine King's tablet completely update the Devouring System's central database in this regard, but it also allowed Yi Xian to see a new path of gene fluid research, which gave him a lot of inspiration. Although the gene fluid required countless medicinal herbs and dire beast materials in all kinds of ratios and variations, the various top families had explored for many years and gradually developed their own methods to form a system of secret arts and secret recipes. However, in Yi Xian's opinion, even if he had just started using an unorthodox method, he would not necessarily fall behind because he had the immortal rank superbrain. His calculation ability was too strong. With such a treasure in hand, it was equivalent to having the most powerful computer in the current Starry Sky environment. In terms of the research of gene fluids, Yi Xian had an innate advantage that none of the other top-notch families possessed. Although there was also an immortal rank superbrain in the immortal star, and it was a mature one, that immortal rank superbrain bore the important mission of being the intelligence center of the immortal star dynasty's level 1 star network. How could it have the time to calculate gene fluid formulas for the top families of the 3 immortal stars? Bodhi technology, celestial worthy creatures, and Shenong gene? Therefore, Yi Xian, who had a growth-grade immortal rank superbrain, definitely had a calculation ability in the field of gene fluid research that far surpassed the 16 great families. As long as he got started, he might really be able to concoct the level 11 gene fluid before the Tuoba family. With this kind of expectation, Yi Xian quickly immersed himself in the research, starting from the configuration of the level 1 gene fluid and becoming intoxicated. Early the next morning, as soon as Yi Xian woke up, the head housekeeper of the Tuoba family had already led 2 servants to deliver breakfast. What he said at the banquet last night was indeed effective. Although it was only breakfast, the ingredients were extremely extraordinary. It was a light porridge made from top-grade ingredients from dire beasts. Yi Xian ate it with great satisfaction. He felt a warm current flowing down his throat into his stomach, and in an instant, it turned into a burning energy, causing his body to resonate with the sound of his flesh and blood cells struggling to break free from their shackles. Of course, a bowl of top-grade dire beasts ingredient porridge was far from enough to make him directly break through the realm in terms of blood and qi, but there was no doubt that there was an improvement. Yi Xian couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, this kind of great family was the best. If he could eat this kind of energy porridge made from top-grade dire beasts ingredient every day over time, he would be able to accumulate a certain amount of blood and qi and improve the realm. If this kind of thought was known by the head of the Tuoba family, Tuoba Xiong, he was afraid that he would spurt out blood on the spot. This bowl of light porridge made from dire beasts ingredient was very expensive, and even he was reluctant to eat it. It was completely to appease Yi Xian, fearing that he would have the idea of taking 3 places to go to the Clear River Pavilion to eat, so he endured the pain and sent it over. Yi Xian actually wanted to eat it every day. If he really did that, he was afraid that in less than a year the entire Tuoba family would be eaten by him. Just after breakfast, Tuoba Linfeng, the purplish warbler, and the other heirs of the great families came together with bitter faces. In addition to the 16 people who had already seen yesterday, there were 3 more fellows today, following behind Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Changyu Xiaotian. They must be the new candidates of the Tuoba family, who were also in the Black Hole realm. There were a total of 19 people. Including Yi Xian, there were exactly 20 people. This group of people should be the younger generation of the great families that would enter the Medicine King's remains in 9 days. The reason why they came together early in the morning was because the other 13 families wanted to be on good terms with Yi Xian. After all, apart from refining the Medicine King's ancient tablet and holding the key to enter the core of the Medicine King's remains, Yi Xian's terrifying talent in alchemy was also favored by them. The Xinyuan family and Duanmu family also wanted to recruit a son-in-law. As for the Tuoba family, Gongyang family, and Changyu family, they hoped that this group of young people would pester Yi Xian and divert his attention, hoping that he would not only think about eating all day. Even if he did not go to the Clear River Pavilion, what if he ate all day in the Tuoba family? He could not stand it. Chapter 3241. The main character has arrived in the next 2 days, including the purplish warbler, 19 of the top clan's successors and Heaven's prides, under the pressure of their elders, gritted their teeth and patiently accompanied Yi Xian. They were called nephew and niece by him, and their days were bleak. At this time they finally deeply realized how shameless and hateful this young master Ling Hu was. Fortunately, Yi Xian did not pay special attention to the other clan successors, except for the Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu clans. In these 2 days, Tuoba Linfeng, Gongyangji, and Changyu Xiaotian had lost a lot of weight, and their spirits were somewhat absent-minded. It was as if they had been tormented to the point of leaving a psychological shadow. Whenever they heard the name Ling Hu, they would tremble and tremble. Their miserable appearance was simply tear-jerking. In addition, at noon on the 2nd day, the Tuoba clan served a large plate of braised subblood dragon liver, and placed it in front of Yi Xian. Tuoba Xiong's eyes were red, and he simply could not eat. In order to hunt this subblood dragon, the Tuoba clan dispatched 3 Heavenly Passage Realm elders. In the end, one of them was seriously injured. Although no one died, that elder was Tuoba Xiong's uncle. For the King of Medicine's inheritance, they were obviously going all out. The leaders and clan masters of the other top clans had also heard about this. In their eyes, this plate of braised subblood dragon liver was something that the elder of the Tuoba clan had sacrificed half of his life in exchange for. So who would have the nerve to eat it? In the end, Yixian ate alone with a mouthful of oil. This mature subblood dragon was a powerful ominous beast that had just entered the heavenly passage realm. Its whole body's essence was in two places, the dragon's horn and the dragon's liver. The former could not be eaten and could only be used as medicine, while the latter was a top-grade ingredient. Furthermore, because this hornless dragon was killed on the same day and its liver was braised, the loss of energy in the hornless dragon's liver was relatively small. Once the entire hornless dragon's liver entered his stomach, Yixian instantly felt as if his entire body had fallen into a huge furnace and was being roasted. This was also because he had just eaten a serving of subblood hornless dragon's liver yesterday. Although it had been sitting there for 3 days and its energy had been depleted, the energy of 2 servings of hornless dragon's liver was not to be underestimated. Before the others finished eating, he finished the plate of braised hornless dragon's liver alone and immediately left in a hurry. He went to the small courtyard where he stayed to cultivate. Half an hour later, a beam of red light shot into the sky from Yixian's courtyard, accompanied by Yixian's hearty laughter. Ha ha ha! Awesome! It was so satisfying. I ate until my mouth was dripping with oil and I accidentally broke through. Now, my cultivation base in terms of vitality force is already a rank 4 black hole. There are still 2 more plates of hornless dragon's liver tomorrow and the day after. At least I can break through one more time and become a rank 5 black hole in the blink of an eye. Sai Tuoba family's head is really a good person. If I can stay here for a long time, I won't go anywhere if I have a plate of hornless dragon's liver every day. Hearing this hearty laughter, the faces of the other top families in the banquet hall immediately turned green. Even old man Duanmu and the head of the Shenyuan family, who originally wanted to recruit a son-in-law, suddenly came to their senses and immediately dismissed the idea. This guy was clearly a top-notch foodie. Fortunately, he realized it in time. Otherwise, if he really brought him back to the clan as a son-in-law, he would probably eat up the entire clan in less than a year. Thinking of this, old man Duanmu and the head of the Shenyuan family looked at each other subconsciously. They both thought to themselves that it was a close call, and cold sweat dripped down their backs. This old man has a bit of liver pain today, so I won't accompany you all. Enjoy your meal. Tuoba Xiong gritted his teeth. Since last night's banquet, he hadn't eaten a single grain of rice. He really couldn't eat anymore and his heart was bleeding. When he walked to the entrance of the banquet hall, he suddenly thought of something and stopped. He turned around and looked at Gongyang Buhui and Changyu Jinglong. 2 old friends, there are still 9 days left. You can discuss how to supply 2 meals of hornless dragon's liver. Don't do it consecutively. It's better to do it a few days apart. Otherwise, if we get addicted to it, we really can't handle it. After saying that, he flicked his sleeves and left with a face full of grief and indignation. At the same time, in the void of the galaxy millions of miles away from the capital of the Heavenly War Empire, the Heavenly War planet, a fleet of merchant ships was slowly approaching. Their target was the Heavenly War planet. This fleet of merchant ships wasn't a fleet of the human clan of the Third Universe. Judging from the emblems on the merchant ships, they were clearly from the Barbarian Bull clan of the Second Universe. The Barbarian Bull clan was also one of the clans of the Federation of the Second Universe. They had been trading with the human clan of the Third Universe for a long time. Through the planar-level universe wormhole, the merchant fleets of the 2 universes could communicate with each other. This had been very common since tens of thousands of years ago. Therefore, when the merchant fleet of the Barbarian Bull clan arrived, the patrol ships of the Heavenly War Empire didn't have any excessive reaction. They just did a routine inspection and directly let them go. At this time, several figures were standing on the flagship of the fleet. The one in the lead was a young human man with an imposing appearance. He was quite extraordinary. His cultivation realm had also reached the peak of the rank 9 black hole. In addition to this young human man in the black hole realm, there were several human powerhouses standing behind him, as well as several powerhouses of the Barbarian Bull clan with bull horns on their heads. One of the powerhouses of the barbarian Bull clan even had the cultivation of the Grotto Heaven realm. He was extremely powerful. Even so, he still stood behind the young human man in the peak of the rank 9 black hole realm like a follower. This showed that this young human man must have an extraordinary origin, and must have a big force behind him. In the environment of the starry sky, it was basically impossible for a rogue cultivator to subdue someone stronger than him as a servant. Following someone whose cultivation was stronger than himself, the only explanation was that there was a huge force behind him. Young Master, we have connected to the level 2-star network of the Heavenly War planet. The basic situation is similar to what we have learned before. The Tuoba clan has indeed successfully formulated the level 10 gene cultivation fluid. The reason why their research on the gene cultivation fluid has advanced by leaps and bounds is indeed because they have obtained some benefits from the Medicine King's relics that were originally controlled by my Linghu clan. The Medicine King's tablet, which is the key to open the core of the Medicine King's relics, has been taken out by Tuoba Xiong. At this time, another old man of the human clan hurried over and stood aside with his hands clasped behind his back. He reported to the young human powerhouse that he had just learned. But this is not the main point. The main point is that after Tuoba Xiong took the Medicine King's tablet out of the Medicine King's relics, he set it up in the Tuoba Square so that anyone could challenge it. As a result, just yesterday this tablet was passed 3 times by a young black hole realm powerhouse, and he passed it perfectly. He has already been recognized as its master. This person is now in the Tuoba clan and is being treated as a distinguished guest. And this person is called Linghu Chong, and he calls himself Young Master Linghu. This is clearly using your identity. Gotcha. Chapter 3242. Translator. Nyerbo Studio Editor. Nyerbo Studio Universe 2 In Demon Clan. The young expert's name was Linghu Ju. He was the true young master of the Linghu clan. In fact, it was possible to say that he was the clan leader of the Linghu bloodline. That was because his father had passed away many years ago. The entire Linghu bloodline that had escaped from the Heaven Battle Planet had long since obeyed Linghu Ju's orders. He had become the leader of the Linghu bloodline. The young master of the Linghu clan, who had escaped from the Heaven Battle Planet, was Linghu Ju's father. More than 2,000 years ago, before Linghu Ju was born, the Linghu clan was the only clan in the entire dynasty that could concoct a level 9 fluid. Even the Bodhi technology, celestial worthy creatures, and Shenong genes of the imperial capital's immortal planet could only concoct a level 8 fluid. The Xianyuan, Huangfu, and Nangong clans of the Heavenly Dark Empire, the Duanmu, Wuma, and Shinta clans of the Heavenly Wind Empire, and the Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu clans of the Heavenly War Empire could only concoct a level 7 fluid. It could be said that the Linghu clan was the only clan at that time. In the field of gene cultivation fluid research, they were even more envious than the Tuoba clan, who had just launched a level 10 fluid. Because of this, the Heavenly War Empire had joined forces with the Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu clans of the Heaven Battle Planet to destroy the entire Linghu clan overnight. It was said that the Immortal Dynasty was behind this, but this matter had not been confirmed. However, there were some clues that could prove it. Because without the Imperial Dynasty's participation, the Heavenly War Empire alone would not have been able to affect the 3 empires of the Imperial Dynasty. The secondary star networks of the 3 empires, as well as the secondary star networks of the various countries within their territories, could not find any information related to the Linghu clan. This time, Linghu Ju had come back for revenge. Originally, he wasn't ready. According to the original plan, he fled to the Linghu clan in the second universe. He needed to recuperate for more than 1,000 years. Only then would he have the confidence to return to the third universe and come to the Heaven Warring Planet to eradicate the Tuoba clan, the Gong clan, and the Longfish clan in one fell swoop. From then on, they once again gained the upper hand and became the most powerful existence in the gene cultivation fluid field in the entire Heaven Battle Planet and even in the entire Undying Dynasty. As long as this kind of momentum was formed, even if the Heavenly Battle Empire and even the Eternal Dynasty had their suspicions, as long as Linghu Ju pretended not to know the truth of what happened back then and only pointed the spearhead at the Heavenly Battle Planet's 3 great families, the Empire and Dynasty would most likely tolerate their existence for the time being due to the powerful genetic fluid research ability in their hands. This way, Ling Huju could secretly set up his plans. They would use time to slowly erode the empire until they were finally destroyed. From then on, they would have the strength and capital to contend with the dynasty. From this, one could see how great his ambition was and how intense his hatred was. His target wasn't just the Heaven Battle Planet's 3 greatest gene fluid clans, but even the Heaven Battle Empire and the entire Immortal Dynasty. Of course, if it was only to destroy the Heavenly War Empire, even if they replaced it, they definitely wouldn't have the strength to contend against the entire Everlasting Empire. But Ling Huju was not worried because he had other trump cards, and that was the various races of the Second Universe. Back then, the reason why the Ling Hu family was able to rise so quickly and had the ability to concoct the 9th-level genetic fluid was because they had discovered the Medicine King's ruins near the Heavenly Battle Planet. At the periphery of the Medicine King's ruins, half of the Medicine King's inheritance was obtained by the Ling Hu family, allowing them to have the ability to concoct the 9th-level genetic fluid. It was also because of this that they attracted a fatal disaster. Later on, the young master of the Ling Hu family escaped with a batch of resources and went to the Second Universe. There, he rested for more than 2,000 years and carefully studied the half of the Medicine King's incomplete book. Today, the Ling Hu family had successfully concocted the 11th level genetic fluid not long ago. Compared to the Tuoba family who had just discovered the Medicine King's ruins and used it to concoct the 10th level genetic fluid, they were even more powerful in this field. Because of this, Ling Huju and the 2 great races of the Second Universe had secretly reached a strategic cooperation. On the surface, the one who cooperated with them was the Barbarian Bull clan, which was one of the races of the Second Universe's federation. The first race was the Een Demon clan. Although the Een Demon clan was also a race of the Second Universe, they had not joined the Myriad Luo Federation. There were many other races in the Second Universe, but not all of them had joined the Myriad Luo Federation. Although joining the Federation was the general trend, there were also some powerful races that were unable and unwilling to join the Federation for some special reasons. The Een Demon clan was one of them. It could be said that Ling Huju had secretly allied with the 2 great races of the Second Universe. The support behind him was extremely powerful. If he could destroy the Heavenly Battle Empire, coupled with the support from the Second Universe, he would have the qualifications to fight against the Immortal Dynasty. At present, the situation of the Federation was very tense. Because of the Tenju Heavenly Palace of the Cultivation Camp, the races of the Second Universe's Federation were showing signs of breaking off with the Federation. It was because of this general trend, coupled with the shocking news that the Tuoba family had successfully developed the 10th level genetic fluid, that Ling Huju suspected that the Medicine King's ruins in the star field near the Heavenly Battle Planet had been exposed. As a result, he had no choice but to take action 1,000 years in advance. He brought a Barbarian Bull clan fleet disguised as a merchant fleet from the Second Universe to the Heavenly Battle Empire. In fact, this fleet was a powerful battle fleet. Aside from the Barbarian Bull clan experts that appeared as merchants, there were also a large number of Een Demon clan experts hidden in the fleet. This time, Ling Huju had 2 goals for mobilizing the Heavenly Battle Planet. First, enter the Medicine King's ruins, enter the core area, and obtain the complete inheritance of the Medicine King. Second, destroy the Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu clans, and use the name of Ling Huju to establish a foothold in the Heavenly Battle Planet. Then pretend that he did not know the truth of the destruction of his clans and feign civility with the Heavenly Battle Empire, slowly plotting. But now he had traveled hundreds of millions of miles from the Second Universe, and before he even reached the Heavenly Battle Planet, he actually heard that someone had used his identity as the young master of the Ling Hu clan to stir up trouble in the Heavenly Battle Planet. Not only did this person take the opportunity to refine the Medicine King's ancient tablet, which was equivalent to the key to the core area of the ruins, he even used his identity as the young master of the Ling Hu clan to become an honored guest of the Tuoba clan. If this matter were to be known by the ancestors of the Ling Hu clan, they would be so angry that they would crawl out of their graves on the spot. Damned bastard, not only did he use this young master's identity, he even went to this young master's enemy's house to become an honored guest. This is clearly the rhythm of smearing feces on this young master's face. At this moment, Ling Huju was about to explode from anger. He, who had always been calm and low-key, had completely gone berserk. Thinking about it, it was actually understandable. He originally came here full of ambition, but unexpectedly, before he even entered the heavenly battle planet, he received such news. Anyone would find it hard to accept in such a short time. Damned bastard Ling Huchong, right? If this young master does not kill you, I am not a human. Ling Huju was enraged and roared towards the sky. Chapter 32-43. Rapid progress. Today was the third day since Yixian was welcomed into the Tuoba family as an honored guest. At the same time, today was also the day of the Medicine King Summit of the 16 Great Clans. After today, there were only 7 days left before the Tuoba family, and the 16 Great Clans joined forces to explore the Medicine King's relics. In just 3 short days, Tuoba Xiong felt that each day was like a year, as if 3 years had passed. He had lost a lot of weight, and when he hosted the Medicine King Summit this morning, a pair of deep panda eyes appeared. Originally, all the great clans had their own plans for this Medicine King Summit, whether it was the Tuoba family, the Gong family, and the Chongyu family who invited other great clans, or the Bodhi Technology celestial creatures Shennong Jin, and the Xianyuan family who were invited. All of them hoped that before this Medicine King Summit, they would be able to find out some secret techniques related to the concoction of gene fluids from the other clans. But now, all the great clans had given up on this idea, and no longer had any extravagant hopes. All of this was because of Yixian. These secret techniques were all in the hands of the great clans, and everyone knew that in this Medicine King Summit, the discussions on the surface were all irrelevant topics. Only some secret exploratory discussions and exchanges would involve the real gold and silver in the hands of the great clans. Everyone wanted to obtain some important techniques from other clans that they had not yet mastered, but these techniques could not be obtained out of thin air. All the great clans had listed the bottom line of exchange, and they needed to test each other. In this way they could obtain the most benefits with the least cost. Unfortunately, Yixian was also thirsty for talent in this aspect. After the summit began, he became a real headless fly in the blink of an eye, wandering everywhere. Every time he saw 2 important figures of the great clans gathered together and whispered to each other, he would immediately grin and run over, saying that he wanted to communicate. In reality, his idea was to eavesdrop on the secret exchange of techniques. As for him, it was obvious that he couldn't bring out any useful key technology. He was clearly a freeloader. Often, he would frighten both parties who were testing each other or had the intention to trade to keep their mouths shut, so that he wouldn't take advantage of them. After the commotion, the whole morning passed. In the end, all the 16 great clans sighed to each other. With this devil incarnate stirring up trouble, they finally realized that the Medicine King Peak was completely useless this time. No one could have a pleasant exchange, unless they were willing to be taken advantage of by him on both sides, and learn all the key technologies that the 2 clans took out to exchange for nothing. The situation in the afternoon was still the same. In the end, the whole Medicine King Peak would end hastily. The masters and leaders of the 16 top aristocratic families were all sad and indignant, but there was nothing they could do. At a time like this, no one dared to easily offend Yixian. In these short 3 days, he had already successfully created the image of Ling Huchong. In short, this was a person who appeared to be extremely easy to get along with and didn't have any shrewdness. However, in reality, he was a person who often made people gnash their teeth in hatred. He dared to do anything shameless, and all of them were righteous. If they really pissed him off, the exploration of the Medicine King's remains in 7 days was very likely to be in vain. Once this guy got angry, he could do anything. It was like a game to break a promise on the spot. Speaking of which, he even said that he was unrestrained and did whatever he wanted. To be able to say that he was so magnanimous and extraordinary, there was probably no one but him. It was precisely because they deeply understood the beauty of Ling Huchong's unrestrained and magnanimous nature that the 2 clans, who originally wanted to do a perfunctory job, did not dare to fool him in the end. In the following days, they each sent several Tao Insight Realm Elders to the distant void outside the Heavens War planet. They each successfully hunted an adult subblood dragon, took its liver and cooked 2 plates of braised subblood dragon liver for Yixian to enjoy. Finally, they had fulfilled their promise and completed their task. Although 2 of the 3 Tao Insight Realm Elders were injured, none of them died. However, the Chongyu family, which was the last to act, encountered a group of subblood dragons that had come out of their nest to look for food after successfully killing a subblood dragon. As a result, although 2 elders managed to escape with the subblood dragon, one of them was killed in the end. A Heavenly Passage Realm elder had fallen just like that. The Longfish family didn't have the nerve to announce this matter because of their reputation, so they didn't spread the news at first. After the subblood hornless dragon that they brought back cut open its liver and cooked a plate of braised hornless dragon liver, Yixian finally broke through again. Now his strength of qi and blood had reached rank 5 of the Black Hole realm, entering the middle stage of this realm. When the news was sent back to the Changyu clan, the head of the clan, Changyu Jinglong, was so angry that he vomited blood on the spot. Then he roared, revealing a strong killing intent. In the next few days, Yixian did not cause any more trouble. After living in the Tuoba clan for a few days, his strength of qi and blood had broken through 2 minor realms, which made him very satisfied. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough. He realized that the nerves of Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu, the 3 great heaven battle planets' top-notch families, had been forced to the extreme by him. If there were any other more excessive requests, he feared that they would erupt before entering the Medicine King's ruins. Therefore, these days Yixian had been concentrating on the concoction of gene fluid. Starting from rank 1 gene fluid to rank 7 gene fluid, Yixian's progress in the concoction of gene fluid was very fast. It was almost a day before the set date to explore the Medicine King's remains, and he was already able to successfully concoct rank 7 gene fluid. As for the various herbs that he needed to refine, minerals that could be used as medicine, and some fierce beast materials, etc., they were all provided by the Tuoba clan. When Yixian said that he needed some herbs and materials to study the concoction of gene fluid, Tuoba Xiong was anxious at first, thinking that he was going to ask for too much this time. If this kid was going to study rank 10 gene fluid, rank 11 gene fluid, and so on, because the herbs and materials needed were all top quality goods, even the Tuoba clan could not afford to squander them. In the end, Yixian only asked for some of the lowest quality materials. Only then did Tuoba Xiong breathe a sigh of relief and let out a word that they were open to supply, as long as they could divert his attention and make him not think about going to the Clear River Pavilion all day long, or eating the subblood dragon's liver. Until the day before the departure, Yixian only asked for various herbs and materials to concoct rank 7 gene fluid. Although it could not be considered as low-quality goods for the Tuoba clan, it was completely acceptable. Of course, the most important thing was that the time was approaching, and if they endured it, it would only be the last day. Therefore, although Yixian asked for more herbs and materials on the last day, Tuoba Xiong gritted his teeth and finally provided them to him. Chapter 3244. The Void Secret Territory. The time was finally up, and all the top-notch families were on the move. The top-notch families from the Undying Star, Bodhi Technology, Celestial Biotech, and Shenong Biotech. The Xianyuan, Huangfu, and Nangong families from the Heavenly Dark Empire, the Duanmu, Wuma, and Shuntu families from the Heavenly Wind Empire, and the Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu families from the Heavenly War Empire, and the other 4 families in the empire that had the ability to concoct the level 8 liquid, the Huyan family, Bailey family, Pengcheng Pharmaceuticals, and Life Genetics. A total of 16 top-notch families and forces that participated in the Medicine King's summit, in addition to some rogue cultivators that left their names on the Medicine King's tablet, formed a huge fleet and set off from the Heavenly War planet, sailing towards the distant void. Because the Medicine King's ruin was discovered by the Tuoba family of the Heavenly War planet, the entire fleet was led by the Tuoba family. Their family's 10,000-meter fortress was at the forefront of the fleet. It was worth mentioning that although there were 16 space fortresses in the fleet, they were all 10,000 meters in diameter, not 5,000 meters in diameter, 20,000 meters in diameter, or 50,000 meters in diameter. After all, these were only the fleets of the top-notch families and forces. 10,000 meters in diameter was already the limit, not 20,000 meters in diameter. Of course, the Heavenly War Empire still had its military, but this time the Heavenly War Empire did not participate in the exploration, probably to avoid suspicion, so that the other top-notch families could rest assured. Otherwise, if the local military intervened, the other forces would have nothing to do, including the top-notch families from the Undying Star such as Bodhi Technology, Celestial Biotech, and Shenong Biotech. Although they came from the imperial capital, They were still a civilian force and could not compete with the Heavenly War Empire's government. If the Heavenly War Empire's government participated, it was very likely that all the other foreign forces would have no choice but to join forces, which would do more harm than good to the Heavenly War Empire's government and the Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu families. Because of this, the officials of the Heavenly War Empire simply did not participate, but everyone knew that Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu, the three local top families, and the officials of the Heavenly War Empire must have already made an agreement. Everyone just had a tacit understanding. Therefore, apart from Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu, these three local top families, all the other families and forces had secretly made other preparations. Before obtaining the Medicine King's inheritance in the core of the Medicine King's remains, it was normal for everyone to be on good terms with each other. However, once the Medicine King's inheritance was found, such a situation would no longer exist. If other forces other than Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu obtained the inheritance, they would definitely activate their backup methods. For example, they would have already prepared some instant teleportation arrays to send the King of Medicine's inheritance away at the first moment. Otherwise, there would be disputes. Of course, Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu, the three top local families and the officials of the Heavenly War Empire must have long been on guard against this move. In short, everyone seemed to be amiable on the surface, but they all had their own schemes in the dark. The exploration of the ruins this time was still fine before the ownership of the Medicine King's inheritance was revealed. Once the dust settled and the ownership was decided, the backup plans that all the forces had prepared would all be revealed. At that time it would be like the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each showing their own abilities. In addition to the fleets of the 16 top families, the Clear River Pavilion in the Heavenly War Planet also had secret arrangements, but they did not set off on the spur of the moment. They had already lurked around the Medicine King's remains. The same was true for Ling Huju's forces. The Second Universe's barbarian Dragon Clan fleet disguised as a commercial fleet had already docked at the public interstellar dock of the Heavenly War Planet, but Ling Huju quietly left the Heavenly War Planet with some of his confidants and experts from the Barbarian Bull Clan and the Een Demon Clan. They also lurked around the Medicine King's remains. For Hu Qing, the most important thing now was to send experts to follow young Master Ling Huchong into the Medicine King's remains to compete for the Medicine King's inheritance. Similarly, for the real Ling Hu young Master Ling Huju, competing for the Medicine King's inheritance was also the most important thing now. However, they all knew that even if they had the key to enter the core of the Medicine King's remains, the ancient tablet of the Medicine King, there were still only 20 spots to enter. Apart from Yi Xian, who had refined the ancient tablet of the Medicine King, the other 19 spots had already been divided among the 16 top families. Whether it was Clear River Pavilion's Hu Qing or Ling Hu young Master Ling Huju, if they wanted to send people in, they could only wait for the opportunity to snatch the spots from the hands of the 16 top families at the last moment. The rules of the Medicine King's remains limited the people who could enter the Medicine King's remains to be starry sky experts below the origin realm. Therefore, the experts that Hu Qing and Ling Hu young Master Ling Huju had prepared for this were all existences at the great perfection of the Black Hole realm. Among them, Ling Huju had prepared 4 great perfection powerhouses of the Black Hole 9 team, including himself, Yi Xian, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, Changyu Xiaotian, the Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, Zhao Chanru from the Immortal Star Bodhi Technology, Yuan Zhua from Celestial Worthy Creatures, Dongfang Lin from Shenong Genes, and the other heirs and young geniuses of the various great families and forces were all gathered in the 10,000-meter-long castle of the Tuoba family at this moment. Including the family heads and leaders of the 16 great families, they were also gathered here. Apart from Yi Xian, who was idling, the other heirs of the various great families were all close to the leaders of their respective families at this moment and were individually being briefed. Although these heirs and geniuses of the various great families often hung out together recently, they dared not say that their relationship was very good, but they were quite harmonious with each other and had a certain degree of friendship. However, everyone knew in their hearts that once they entered the core of the Medicine King's remains, their relationship would instantly reverse, and they would become competitors, enemies of life and death. Among them, there might be existences who had already formed private alliances. The 3 great families, Tuoba family, Gongyangji, and Changyu family, even had 2 juniors entering the core of the Medicine King's remains. But all in all, An intense battle between the two was unavoidable. For days later, the void in front of the fleet was extremely desolate, and there were only a few scattered wild stars in sight. This place had long deviated from the main route of the Heaven Battle Planet, and was extremely far away from the main route of the Heaven Battle Planet. Get ready. We're almost at the Void Secret Realm where the Medicine King's remains is. It's not far from the void up ahead. At this time the Tuoba family head Tuoba Xiong finally spoke and turned to Yixian and the others. The entrance to the Void Secret Realm will not appear, and we need to activate the array. We have already arranged everything, but the battleships cannot enter. When the time comes when the passage appears, all of you will follow me in. Chapter 3245. Translator. Nyerbo Studio Editor. Nyerbo Studio. Another plane. The Medicine King's remains was not far from the Heavenly Battle Empire's capital, the Heavenly Battle Planet. It was only a 4 to 5 day flight. Although it was very far away from the main route of the capital, it was located in a very remote star field. In this area there were not even many stars in the void, and there was not much development value, so there were very few people who came here on normal days. However, no matter what, this area was located at the edge of the capital. It was impossible for it to remain a secret for tens of thousands of years. The reason for this situation was that this ancient relic was not located in the normal void of the universe. It was hidden in a void secret territory, which was equivalent to an alien plane. However, it was connected to this universe plane where the human clan of the third universe was located by a void passage. Void passageways were actually small wormholes in the universe that connected different void planes. The void secret territory where the Medicine King's remains was located could be regarded as another universe plane. However, because it was very small, it was far from being called a universe plane. Therefore, this kind of small alien plane was habitually called the void secret territory. The miniature universe wormhole that passed through the void secret region where the Medicine King's relics was located, which was also commonly known as the Void Tunnel, was usually hidden and did not appear. It was precisely for this reason that the mysterious veil of the Medicine King's relics had always existed and had never been revealed to the world. Just like the legendary Peach Blossom Spring, if one did not know the entrance, even if they walked nearby, they would still miss it. In the past countless years, countless experts who had passed through the void of this star area had passed by the mysterious Medicine King's remains in this way. But now, with the rumbling of thunder in the void in front of them, some mysterious lights could be faintly seen in the vast void. These were the nodes of the formation set up by the Tuoba family in the nearby void. Now that they were all activated, finally, a small wormhole that was like a black hole in the universe appeared in this huge void formation. It was deep and distant, and it was dark inside. It was connected to another small universe plane. The 16 10,000-meter-long fortresses of the entire fleet all stopped and surrounded the small wormhole in a fan shape. Then, the patriarchs and helmsmen of the 16 great clans all led the experts of their clans out of the warships and rushed toward the void passage ahead. Among them, there were also some independent cultivators who had left their names on the tablet of the Medicine King. They were also allowed to enter the Medicine King's remains, but they could only move around the periphery like the other cultivators of the 16 great clans, searching for opportunities. After entering the void passage, one would enter the alternate plane where the Medicine King's relics was located. The entire alternate plane was actually the periphery of the Medicine King's relics. There were no restrictions on cultivation or number of people exploring the periphery. This time, all the experts, including Tuoba Xiong and the other family heads of the 16 great families, would be exploring the periphery. Although there was no Medicine King's legacy in the periphery, it was still an alternate plane after all, and there were some rare and precious fruits. This depended on one's luck because the periphery was too vast. No matter how small this alternate plane was, it was still an independent universe plane. Even if it could not be compared to the 3 great universe planes, it was not much smaller than a star area. In such a vast void, there were also some stars, and even some stars were full of vitality. There were no life forms, but there were plants. If one was lucky, one could still find some rare and precious fruits. 16 10,000-meter-long fortresses were waiting outside the void passage that was like a small black hole. The number of experts who stepped out of the fortresses and entered the void passage one after another, and set foot on the alternate plane of the Medicine King's relics was more than 1,000 people. There were about 100 independent cultivators, and the rest were the experts of the 16 great clans. Everyone had already been informed that they had to return to the other side of the void passage in 30 days at the latest and come out as a group. Otherwise, when the Tuoba family removed the formation from the outside world, the void passage would disappear and they would never have the chance to come out again. In order to maintain the void passage that connected to the alternate plane for a month, the Tuoba family could be considered to have invested a lot of resources. More than 1,000 experts entered the void passage one after another. What appeared in front of them was still a similar void, but it was obviously not the Heavenly War starfield. The exit of the void passage was also a small star vortex that was like a black hole, hanging outside the atmosphere of a giant star. All the experts stepped out from this star vortex. This small star vortex was very eye-catching, and could be seen even from very far away in the void. Therefore, the experts who entered the alternate plane scattered in all directions to explore. They did not have to worry about getting lost or not being able to find their way back. As far as the eye could see, the dark void around them was dotted with large and small stars, some of which were even emitting light and heat. This place did not seem to be much different from the third universe. The only difference was that the simple aura was much thicker, but it was still very far from being desolate. In addition, its territory was relatively small, not even comparable to an ordinary star field in the third universe. This was the Medicine King's relics, a small alternate plane in the universe. As for the so-called core of the Medicine King's remains, it was located in the depths of the star field of the alien plane. There was no need to look for it. Everyone saw it as soon as they stepped out of the small star vortex. This scene was so strange that all the experts who entered this alternate plane for the first time were caught off guard. They all subconsciously opened their mouths wide, and their faces were full of sluggishness. They even suspected that they were hallucinating. There was a super huge star in front of them. This was not the key was the shape of this star. It was clearly a three-legged, four-eared cauldron. The legendary bronze treasures of the desolate era generally looked like this, but the one in front of them was too big. It was even bigger than the Heavenly War star of the Heavenly War Empire. It was a superstar. My God, is this really a star? I suspect that it is a giant cauldron, a bronze cauldron from ancient times. No, from the legendary desolate era. A supreme treasure. Is that the core of the Medicine King's relics? The so-called Medicine King's relics are in that giant bronze cauldron? No wonder, the Medicine King's relics are the inheritances of alchemy. How can alchemy be separated from the cauldron? It is understandable that the ultimate Medicine King's relics are hidden in such a giant cauldron. This giant cauldron is amazing. It originated from the Medicine King's lineage in ancient times. How could they have such a supreme treasure? Seems unlikely. If there is no accident, this cauldron, even in the hands of the Medicine King's lineage in ancient times, should be a supreme treasure. It was not made by the Medicine King's lineage in ancient times. It is very likely that it came from the more distant desolate era. Chapter 3246. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Shinnon Cauldron. Ding! Congratulations to the host for discovering the primordial treasure, Shinnon Cauldron. Do you wish to collect it immediately? Shinnon Cauldron? Yixian was stunned. Although it was only a primordial treasure and not a primordial treasure, Yixian felt as if his mind had exploded. He was completely stunned. He had thought that this gigantic cauldron would at most be called the Medicine King Cauldron. Even so, it would be eye-catching and shocking enough. He had never thought that its true origin would be so terrifying. It was actually the legendary primordial treasure, Shinnon Cauldron. If it was the real deal, then this item was definitely not created by the Medicine King lineage of the primordial era. It was from the real primordial era. This point had been confirmed because the notification from the Devouring system said that it was the primordial treasure, Shinnon Cauldron, and not an imitation from the primordial era. To Yixian, this was definitely the treasure he needed the most right now. The Shinnon Cauldron of the primordial era was the ancestor of alchemy. The legend of the Shinnon Cauldron tasting hundreds of herbs had been passed down from generation to generation for countless years. If he could obtain this Shinnon Cauldron, Yixian would be able to go all the way in alchemy and gene concoction research. Even if he could not find the continuation of the hollow technique in the future, He would be able to reach the pinnacle of human evolution with just this Shenong cauldron. Originally, he thought that the so-called inheritance of the King of Medicine would be a general outline of alchemy or secret techniques. In that case, no matter how high the level was, there would still be a limit. But now, it seemed that this so-called inheritance of the King of Medicine was most likely this Shenong cauldron. Perhaps there were other inheritances of the Medicine King lineage left in the cauldron, but compared to this Shenong cauldron, everything else was instantly insignificant. As long as he could refine this Shenong cauldron and take it away, this trip would be worth it. Yi Xian would no longer need to painstakingly search for all kinds of alchemy secrets and secret techniques of the other top clans in the dynasty, because all of this could be found in the Shenong cauldron, and it would be far better than all of them. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's breathing quickened and his heart surged. He couldn't wait to order the system to retrieve the Shenong cauldron, flee with it, and find a place to refine it. However, all of this was obviously impossible. Although the system had discovered the Shenong cauldron and asked whether it should be collected, this did not mean that the system really had the ability to successfully collect the Shenong cauldron. It wasn't as if such a situation had never happened before. When the system asked if he could immediately collect it, it merely told him that the item could be collected. However, whether or not he had the ability to do so was another matter altogether. This was a star much larger than the heavenly battle star of the Heavenly Battle Empire. Although as a desolate era treasure, it could change its size according to one's will, but that was based on the premise that it could be refined or recognized as its master. Before this, even if a universe supreme being came, he would absolutely not be able to shake it in the slightest. If it was a natural star of the same size, the mighty figure of heaven and earth might be able to destroy it with one punch. However, this was an ancient artifact. Now that it had appeared in such a terrifying form, the mighty figure of heaven and earth might not even be able to move it, let alone destroy it with one punch. Otherwise, whether it was the Linghu clan that first discovered the King of Medicine's remains, or the Tuoba clan that discovered it later, even if there was no universe supreme being in the clan, couldn't they ask for help from the Heavenly Battle Empire? This was also a great merit. But in fact, the Shenong cauldron was still here, and this alone was enough to explain the problem. If one wanted to take this cauldron away, there was no other way. The only feasible way was to obtain the King of Medicine's inheritance, and then go one step further and find a way to refine this cauldron from the King of Medicine's inheritance, then successfully refine it, or obtain its recognition and make it recognize its master. In this way, one could make the cauldron as big or small as they wanted, and successfully take it away and make it their own. The King of Medicine's inheritance is in this bronze cauldron that is like a star. When the surrounding experts were still exclaiming, Yi Xian's breathing was rapid, and his heart was surging, Tuoba Xiong suddenly said, "This is a treasure. I even suspect that it is not only from ancient times, but it is very likely to be an item from the desolate era. Inside it there should be another space. That space is the core of the King of Medicine's remains. To obtain the King of Medicine's inheritance, one must enter the internal space of this cauldron. My Tuoba clan has tried to do this many times, but unfortunately, it has not succeeded. If we force our way in, this cauldron will pour out endless mysterious power. That power, even a universe supreme being of the 15th realm, would have to suffer, and would not even have the chance to escape. The only way is to obtain the recognition of the King of Medicine's ancient tablet, and under the protection of the ancient tablet's power, enter the cauldron. After obtaining the King of Medicine's ancient tablet, I studied it carefully for a period of time. Although I did not get the tablet to recognize me as its master, at least I have figured out some of the rules." Speaking of this, Tuoba Xiong turned his head and glanced at Yi Xian. After a short pause, he continued, "The King of Medicine's ancient tablet has recognized you as its master. Now what you need to do is to take out the ancient tablet, hang it above your head, activate its power, and pour out the ancient tablet's brilliance like a waterfall. Everyone who enters the internal space of the King of Medicine's ancient tablet must be under the protection of the ancient tablet's brilliance before they can approach safely. After entering, they will be safe and can move freely. Of course, according to the restrictions of the King of Medicine's ancient tablet, the number of people who can enter is 20, including Linghu. Everyone's cultivation must be below the origin realm. At most, the black hole has reached the peak of the 9th rank. Otherwise, the moment they enter, they will be wiped out by the King of Medicine's cauldron. In addition, there may be some creatures like pet beasts in your body, or in some storage magic treasures. Whether these creatures can be summoned after entering the King of Medicine's cauldron is unknown. So, regarding this matter, you'd better treat it with caution. Otherwise, once they are summoned, they will be wiped out by the internal rules of the King of Medicine's cauldron. That will be your own loss. I have to remind you of this matter in advance. At this point, basically everything that needed to be explained had been explained. Tuoba Xiong did not say anything more. After a short pause, he turned his head and glanced at the leaders of the Shenyuan family and the other top families. Seeing that they all nodded and had nothing to add, he looked at Yixian again and said in a deep voice, "Linghu, do you have any other questions? If you don't, you can use the ancient tablet of the Medicine King now and activate its power. It will pour down like a waterfall and protect the other 19 heavens prides of the various aristocratic families as they slowly enter the Medicine King's ancient cauldron together. This matter, there shouldn't be any danger, right? I am a person who is very afraid of death. Seeing such a big cauldron, now half of my soul has flown away." Chapter 32:47. Shocking Changes Xiao. The sound of something breaking through the air rang out as the Medicine King's ancient tablet rushed out from the top of Yixian's head. It expanded in the wind and transformed into a simple and unadorned heavy tablet that was about 3 meters long. The Medicine King's tablet, Linghu Chong, and the other ancient words on it all disappeared. Although it didn't reveal its complete form, its size was still shocking enough. It floated a few hundred meters above Yixian's head and poured out a waterfall-like green glow. With Yixian's figure as the center, the area within a radius of 300 meters was completely enveloped. The younger generation of the 16 great clans did not hesitate and moved one after another. They included Zhao Qianru of Bodhi Technology, Yuan Zhua of Celestial Biotech, Dongfang Lin of Shenong Biotech, the Purplish Warbler from Heavenly Underworld Empire, the two successors of the Huangfu and Nangong clans, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Changyu Xiaotian, as well as the other 3 Heaven's Pride Juniors from the 3 great clans of Heaven Battle Planet behind them. Apart from them, there were also the successors of the Duanmu Wu Ma and Shinta clans led by Duanmu Xiaocha from Heavenly Wind Empire, as well as the other 4 Heaven's Pride Juniors from the Huyan clan, Bailey clan, Pengcheng Pharmaceuticals, and Life Genetics clans. A total of 19 people flew out and gathered within 1,000 feet of Yixian. Their bodies were all shrouded in the green light of the Medicine King's tablet above Yixian's head. However, several groups of people were practically all located in different directions. Among them, the Heaven Battle Stars Tuoba Linfeng and the others were gathered together, clearly forming a small group. As for the others, some formed small groups based on the regions they came from, and some acted on their own, vigilantly watching everyone else in secret. Among them, the Purplish Warbler from Heavenly Underworld Empire was alone. Clearly, he did not join forces with the successors of the Huangfu and Nangong clans. Yixian saw all this and immediately felt a little embarrassed. Without a doubt, the reason why the Purplish Warbler did not gather with the successors of the Huangfu and Nangong clans was clearly because Yixian had previously caused the Shenyuan family to be in the eye of the storm. Perhaps he had been ridiculed by the Huangfu and Nangong clans. These people had not even entered the core area of the Medicine King's remains, but they were already showing signs of competition. Yixian sneered in his heart. He made up his mind that once he entered, apart from the Purplish Warbler, everyone else, he would suppress them all. Even the heirs of the Huangfu and Nangong families, who were also from the Heavenly Underworld planet, were no exception. These two fellows hadn't gotten too close to Shenyuan Ziying in the past few days, and when they looked at her from time to time, they still had mocking expressions on their faces. I must take advantage of this opportunity to teach them a good lesson. As this thought flashed through his mind, Yixian sneered. Without any hesitation, he stepped forward and slowly swept towards the Shenong cauldron that was like a huge star in front of him. As his figure moved, the Medicine King's ancient tablet that was suspended hundreds of feet above his head also moved, causing the green light area below to also move at the same time. The other 19 successors of the various great families and the younger generation Heaven's Prides in this protective area did not dare to hesitate and also moved. Some of them were closer to Yixian in the protective area, while others were at the edge of the outer circle. The former was worried that if Yi Xian moved too quickly, he would be caught off guard and thrown out of the protective area. The latter planned to be at the edge of the protective circle after entering the core area of the Medicine King's remains. When the time came, they would be able to retreat immediately and avoid any attacks that might come at any time. At the same time, they would be able to rush into the depths of the core area as quickly as possible and make their move in advance to fight for the Medicine King's inheritance. In short, each of them had their own thoughts and plans. Seeing Yi Xian and the other 20 people slowly moving away under the protective light of the Medicine King's ancient tablet, the 1,000 or so people led by Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui, Changyu Jinglong, Duanmu Liangling, Yuan Changfeng, Old Man Xinyuan, and the other leaders of the various great families all gathered their gazes and watched them move forward step by step. There were nearly 1,000 people who entered, but the leaders of the various great families would not leave. They would always guard the surroundings of the Shenong Cauldron, waiting for Yi Xian and the others to successfully obtain the Medicine King's inheritance and rush out. Of course, in the eyes of Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui, Changyu Jinglong, and the others, Yi Xian would never have the chance to come out again. As for the other experts of the various great families and rogue cultivators, they would spread out and explore this vast alien plane that was like a small star field, to see if there were any other fortunes. Now that Yi Xian and the other 20 heavens prides of the various great families had already moved out, the 1,000 or so people who entered watched them walk halfway before they all turned around and left. Yi Xian and the others were seeking the core fortune, so they did not want to fall behind others. The outer area of the Medicine King's ancient ruins was as vast as a small star field, and there were also some hidden fortunes waiting for them to explore. Very soon, the 1,000 or so people who entered had all left. They were in the outer area, so there was no need to deliberately slow down. In the blink of an eye, there were only Tuoba Xiong and the other leaders of the various great families, family heads, and elders left. They would wait here for an entire month. Once someone rushed out, whether or not they had obtained the Medicine King's inheritance, they would be the first to take care of them. Of course, some were to protect them, and some were to secretly prevent them from leaving, in case they carried the Medicine King's inheritance with them. Above the Divine Dragon Cauldron, which was larger than a star, there was always a layer of 9-colored fog, which revealed an inexplicable pressure, blocking the approach of living creatures. Even if the mighty people of heaven and earth tried to force their way in, they would be blocked by this layer of dense fog, unable to move forward and fall into the inner world of the Divine Dragon Cauldron. At this moment, Yi Xian, with the Medicine King's ancient tablet hanging above his head, had already arrived at the edge of the cauldron. As he took a step, Yi Xian had already brought half of the green waterfall light into the cauldron. Seeing this scene, Tuoba Xiong, the leader of the Xianyuan family, and the other leaders of the various great families all breathed a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on their faces. No matter what, at least they had successfully entered the inner world of the cauldron. It was also at this moment that a sudden change occurred. A black lightning suddenly shot out from the edge of the Divine Dragon Cauldron, and directly entered the left side of the green waterfall light that had not yet entered the inner world of the cauldron. Suddenly, 4 figures appeared, and all of them were shrouded in thick black fog. At the same time, in the right side of the green waterfall light, a mysterious light suddenly appeared, and like a teleportation, it directly sent the 4 figures that were wrapped in blazing white light into the green waterfall light. In the blink of an eye, there were actually 8 figures that entered randomly, and directly rushed into the inner world of the cauldron covered in green waterfall light. The direct result of this change was that the 8 figures that suddenly entered randomly rushed into the inner world of the cauldron at lightning speed, wearing the Medicine King's ancient tablet's green waterfall light. Chapter 32:48. Halting the blade. The shocking change happened too quickly. Before the 8 figures could react, they were already squeezed out. 4 of them were the heirs of the Huyen clan, the Bailey clan, the Pengcheng Pharmaceutical Company, and the Life Gene Company. The 4 of them had gathered together at the edge of the green waterfall radiance. As soon as the black lightning rushed in, they were immediately squeezed out. The other 4 people were the successors of the Wu Ma and Shun Tu clans, 2 of the 3 great clans of the Heavenly Wind Empire. After the 2 of them were squeezed out, in the entire Heavenly Wind Empire, only Duanmu Xiaocha of the Duanmu clan had entered the Dragon God Cauldron. The last 2 people were Dongfang Lin from the Shen Nong Jin from the Immortal Planet, and the heir of the Nangong family from the Heavenly Nether Empire. At this moment, as the 8 of them were squeezed out of the green waterfall, the other existences had already completely entered the divine dragon cauldron and disappeared. The leaders of the 8 great families and forces who were squeezed out of the younger generation glared angrily at Tuoba Xiong, Gongyang Buhui, and Changyu Jinglong. Obviously, they thought that this was a small trick by them. This was especially true for the people in charge of the Huyan clan, the Bailey clan, the Pengcheng Pharmaceutical Company, and the Life Gene Company. At this moment they were simply about to explode from anger. Although they did not come from the imperial capital's immortal planet, nor were they aristocratic families from the 3 great empires' imperial capital, they were the 4 forces in the entire imperial capital that similarly possessed the ability to concoct level 8 elixirs. Because their ancestral grounds were not in the imperial capital, nor were they in the 3 great imperial capitals, their foundations were naturally weaker than the other great clans and powers. It was also because of this that the 4 of them had always been tightly bound together. Originally it was thought that there were 4 of them, and moreover they worked closely together to form a tight group. This time, he would most likely be able to obtain the Medicine King's inheritance. Who would have thought that such an unforeseen event would occur? He did not even manage to enter the door, and was directly eliminated. At this moment, the leaders of the 4 forces were filled with righteous indignation. They gritted their teeth and glared at Tuoba Xiong's group. They were sure that it was them who did this, and they did not want to give others a chance to live. Tuoba Xiong, don't you think this is too much? There was clearly an agreement before that each of your 3 clans would have 2 people enter, yet you are still not satisfied? Since you broke the agreement, don't be afraid that I'll do anything to the juniors of your 3 families when those kids come out. The Life Gene Society is not to be trifled with. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became heavy, and there was a strong smell of gunpowder in the air. A fight could break out at any time. Bullshit. At this time Tuoba Xiong was also furious. Being wrongly accused was a small matter, but the 2 groups of people who came in randomly, each group had 4 people and their 3 families only had 6 people. If those 2 groups of people joined hands, the King of Medicine's inheritance would have nothing to do with their 3 families. At this time he was also very angry, and he was a little incoherent. Fellow Taoists, don't panic. Can't you see? That black lightning bolt is the bloodline talent of the second universe's demons. We were tricked by an outsider. On the contrary, the head of the Gongyang family, Gongyang Buhui, was not in a hurry. He hurriedly advised, "We must not panic. Otherwise, once we fight, won't the spy of the Demon clan take the opportunity to escape after getting the King of Medicine's inheritance? Don't forget that the Demon clan is not a race of the Federation. If they really succeed, our King of Medicine's inheritance will fall into the hands of the alien race." That's right, there's still a chance for a turnaround. Although there were 8 people just now, in this old man's opinion the other 4 shouldn't be from the alien race but from the human race. Although they deliberately concealed themselves with the blazing white light around them, their auras couldn't escape our detection. Changyu, who was standing at the side, hurried over and tried to persuade him. "It's a pity that we can only sense that they are humans. We don't know which force is causing trouble, but we can find out later. They will come out eventually. Moreover, since they are humans, they should not join hands with the 4 demons. Our heavenly battle 3 great families have a total of 6 people who entered. If we work together we will have the advantage. Even if there is internal competition among the humans, the King of Medicine's inheritance will most likely fall into the hands of our heavenly battle 3 great families." This old man, Brother Tuoba, and Brother Gongyang promised that once those brats take out the King of Medicine's inheritance, our 3 families will not take it for ourselves. We will more or less give some copies to each of you. How about this? Hearing him say this, although it was not a full copy, the people in charge of the Huyan family, Bailey family, Pengcheng Pharmaceutical Company, and Life Gene Company were satisfied. Gufeng temporarily stopped. No matter which family's descendant obtained the King of Medicine's inheritance, in the end, it was impossible to share the full copy. Even they were the same. Therefore, with the promise of the 3 great families of the Heaven Battle Planet, although the other clan heads and family heads were still indignant, they didn't say anything more. Instead, they were all waiting in formation, closely watching the farmer god cauldron in front of them. Right now, the only thing they were thinking was that no matter what, they had to stop those foreign demon juniors from rushing out of the cauldron and using the chaos to escape. Boom! When the waterfall of green light from the King of Medicine's tablet passed through the dense 9-colored fog of the King of Medicine's cauldron, it produced a huge roar, causing the 20 people who entered, including Yi Xian, to feel dizzy. For a moment, they were absent-minded and did not know where they were. After an unknown amount of time, when Yi Xian regained consciousness, he opened his eyes and found that he had actually fallen into a medicinal garden. There was no one around him, only him. The King of Medicine's tablet. His eyelids twitched. His first thought was to check if the King of Medicine's tablet was lost. Putting aside the miraculous nature of this tablet, it must be of great use in the space inside the Farmer God Cauldron. Perhaps it was the only hope to obtain the King of Medicine's inheritance and find the Farmer God Cauldron. In fact, ever since he realized that this starlight cauldron was the legendary Farmer God Cauldron, Yi Xian's primary goal of this exploration was no longer the King of Medicine's inheritance, but the Farmer God Cauldron. After all, the Farmer God Cauldron was from the Desolate Era, but the King of Medicine's inheritance was left behind in ancient times. According to his estimation, the so-called King of Medicine's inheritance was most likely obtained from the Farmer God Cauldron. Perhaps it was only the tip of the iceberg. As long as he obtained the Farmer God Cauldron, it was no longer important whether he obtained the King of Medicine's inheritance or not. Although Yi Xian thought that the method of refining the Farmer God Cauldron might be discussed in the King of Medicine's inheritance, after thinking about it carefully, the possibility of this was not very high. This required him to explore. At this moment, after investigating, he quickly relaxed. After entering the Farmer God Cauldron, the King of Medicine's tablet had not disappeared. It had automatically entered his sea of consciousness, rotating side by side with the Rai-D seal in the center of his sea of consciousness. But the strange thing was that the 3 words King of Medicine's tablet had completely disappeared, including the 3 words Ling Huchong that had appeared on it. The King of Medicine's tablet was different from before after rushing through the layer of 9-colored fog at the mouth of the Farmer God Cauldron. It had become more simple, exuding a strong ancient aura, and its appearance had changed by at least a third. Could it be? Chapter 3249. The second primordial treasure. This ancient tablet was not the so-called Medicine King's tablet at all. It should be a medium key to refine the Shenong cauldron. To be precise, it was a pestle. The Shenong pestle. This cauldron originated from the primordial era. Could be big or small. If it was big, it could turn into a giant star cauldron. Dragons, phoenixes, and unicorn could all enter it, and use the power of the stars as a furnace to cook great herbs. At this moment, the Medicine King's tablet was like a shovel of heaven and earth. It churned in the cauldron and evenly distributed the medicinal power. If it was small, it could turn into a small medicine pot and be used to grind herbs. At this moment, the Medicine King's tablet was a small pestle. They were originally a set and came from the same source. However, later on, the Shenong cauldron and the Shenong pestle were obtained by the Medicine King's lineage in the primordial era. This pestle was refined by the Medicine King, and covered with a layer of material to fake it as the Medicine King's tablet. As such, as long as the secret of the Medicine King's tablet was not discovered, no one could refine the Shenong cauldron. This pestle was the key to refining the Shenong cauldron. It was the core item. Right now, this pestle was pouring down green waterfalls to protect Yi Xian and the rest as they entered the Shenong cauldron. At the mouth of the cauldron, it was refined by the 9-colored mist of the cauldron. The disguise on the surface was removed, revealing its true form. All of this was just Yi Xian's guess. However, he was confident that this guess was basically the truth. This was because the Medicine King's tablet that was hanging in the sky above his sea of consciousness had indeed changed greatly. Previously it was a tablet, but now it was a cylinder. It was thin at the top and thick at the bottom. It looked exactly the same as the pestle. It was no wonder that it could hang in the sky above Yi Xian's sea of consciousness like the Rai-D seal. Only the Tower of Desolate Antiquity had the qualifications to do so. Even the black gold dragon scale and the golden bow did not occupy the sky above Yi Xian's sea of consciousness. If it was merely the Medicine King's tablet from the ancient era, how could it be mentioned in the same breath as the Tower of Inheritance from the Desolate Era? However, it was a different story if it was the Farmer God Cauldron from the Antiquity era. Although the Farmer God Pestle was not the Farmer God Cauldron, it was the core of this set of treasures from the Antiquity era. The Farmer God Pestle was the key to the Farmer God Cauldron. The Farmer God Pestle was qualified to be on the same level as the Rai-D seal and replaced the Tower of Antiquity. It hung quietly in the central region above Yixian's Sea of Consciousness. Right at this moment, Yixian heard the familiar sound of a system notification in his head. Ding! Congratulations to the host for discovering the primordial treasure, Shenong Pestle. He had already refined it. Shenong Pestle. Combine with the primordial treasure, Shenong Cauldron, to form a set of primordial treasures. Sure enough, as the outer shell of the Medicine King tablet was vaporized by the 9-colored mist of the Shenong Cauldron and revealed its true appearance, the result of the Devouring system's appraisal of it was also different. From this, it could be seen that the Medicine King's bloodline was extraordinary. The Medicine King from the ancient era was only covered with a layer of outer shell by the Farmer God Pestle. It could actually block the appraisal of the Devouring system. It was truly extraordinary. His guess was confirmed. At this moment, Yixian was completely excited. Everything was as he expected. The Medicine King's tablet was the Farmer God Pestle. It was the same as the Farmer God Cauldron. Both of them were primordial treasures. However, if the two of them were combined together to form a set, then it would instantly rise in rank and become a primordial treasure like the Tower of Antiquity. This was clearly the rhythm of obtaining another primordial treasure. If he could also obtain the Farmer God Cauldron, then Yixian would have two primordial treasures in his hands. His devouring doppelganger would have the Tower of Antiquity, while his original body would have the Farmer God Cauldron set. With such a foundation, where could he not go in the boundless starry sky? At this moment, Yixian was filled with lofty aspirations. However, although the Farmer God Pestle had already recognized Yixian as its master, to refine the Farmer God Cauldron and completely control this set of primordial treasures was clearly not something that could be done easily. Yixian still had a long way to go. When these two primordial treasures were combined together, they would form a set of primordial treasures. However, since they were a set, it meant that they were a complete set. At the same time, they were also relatively independent. Although Yixian had already refined the Farmer God Pestle, it was only a key to enter the inner space of the Farmer God Cauldron. It only gave Yixian the qualifications to try to refine the Farmer God Cauldron. Yixian had to refine the two primordial treasures separately and make them recognize him as their master. Only then could he obtain the entire set of Farmer God Cauldron treasures. After going around in circles, he still had to think of a way to refine the Farmer God Cauldron by himself. As for the Farmer God Cauldron, it had nothing to do with this matter. As a key, it brought him in to obtain the qualifications to refine the Farmer God Cauldron, and its responsibilities were fulfilled. All of this was the information that Yixian obtained when he used his divine sense to touch the greatly changed Farmer God Cauldron. In the end, he smiled bitterly. Other than that, the Farmer God Cauldron did not give me any hints. It seems that I have to rely on myself. This is clearly a test. Shaking his head and sighing, he looked around and began to observe the surroundings of the herb garden. As far as the eye could see, the interior space of the Farmer God Cauldron was no different from the interior of a planet. This greatly surprised Yixian. This was not a space-type treasure, but a cauldron used to refine great medicines. If the interior of the cauldron was no different from the interior of a planet, how could he refine great medicines? If he lit a fire, wouldn't everything be burned to ashes? With this doubt in mind, Yixian soared into the sky. Although there were many strange fruits and herbs in the medicinal garden, Yixian wasn't in the mood to pick them at all. As long as he refined the Shenong Cauldron, the entire cauldron would be as large as a planet. All the strange fruits and immortal herbs on the undulating mountains would be his in the end. There was really no need to give up on the basics. Soon Yixian arrived at the sky of the space within the cauldron. After looking down, he quickly discovered that this area was extremely vast. It was definitely compatible with the interior of a huge planet, but the terrain was very strange. The herb garden that Yixian was in was only the periphery. This ring of greenery was a large circle that was distributed around the periphery of the entire area, occupying less than half of the area. In the center of the entire area was a huge volcanic crater that occupied more than half of the entire area. Yixian immediately understood. As expected, it was a giant cauldron used to refine medicines. The volcano in the center must be used to refine great medicines. This was a huge volcano and it was used as a cauldron. How extravagant! At the same time, other than the huge cauldron volcano in the center, the surrounding area was all herb gardens and undulating mountain ranges that could be used to cultivate strange fruits and herbs. There were also some strange beasts that could be seen here and there. There must be various minerals in the soil. The herbs, materials from ferocious beasts, and various rare minerals needed for refining medicines could be nurtured in the farmer god cauldron. At the same time, the central area could be used to refine great medicines. This farmer god cauldron was simply amazing. It could refine anything directly from the ground. Chapter 3250. Translator. Exodus Tales Editor. Exodus Tales using Heartfire as a guide. Yi Xian gazed around the interior of the Shenong cauldron, but he was disappointed. He had hoped to find one or two buildings that might contain ancient books or stone tablets. Perhaps there would be some guidance on how to refine the cauldron, but now it seemed that everything was in vain. This space inside the cauldron was like the interior of a planet. Apart from the central region, which was used as a huge cauldron to refine the great herbs of heaven and earth, the surrounding area was surrounded by rolling hills and herb gardens. There was no trace of human activity. Helpless, Yi Xian could only work on the Shenong pestle that had already been refined. With a thought, the Shenong pestle was summoned from his knowledge sea. It turned into a cylindrical pestle that was 100 feet long. It was thin at the top and thick at the bottom, and it had a round head that was used to pestle herbs. The Shenong pestle and the Shenong cauldron had been separated for countless years. Perhaps this was the first time they had reunited in hundreds of millions of years, so it naturally caused a strange phenomenon. As the Shenong pestle was summoned, the entire interior of the cauldron suddenly shook violently above the volcano in the central region of the cauldron. From the depths of the cauldron, a wave of 9 colored flames surged into the sky. At the same time, the Shenong pestle that was 100 feet long also released a boundless 9-colored light that illuminated the entire area. In Yi Xian's mind, the Devouring system's notification sounded. This must be because the Shenong cauldron and the Shenong pestle had reunited and caused some changes. The Devouring system had captured some information and displayed it in Yi Xian's mind. He had finally obtained information on how to refine the cauldron. Yi Xian was pleasantly surprised. He immediately checked the Devouring system's database and found that the information on the Shenong cauldron and the Shenong pestle had been updated. Among them was the method to refine the Shenong cauldron. In summary, it could be summarized in one sentence. Use the Heartfire to ignite the 9-colored flame of chaos in the central region's volcano cauldron. If he could obtain a 1-colored flame, the cauldron would be considered a success. He would be able to control the size of the cauldron at will. However, a mere 1-colored flame of chaos would only be able to display 1/9 of the Shenong cauldron's power. The medicinal efficacy of the great medicine of heaven and earth that was refined was also limited. In the future, when he could ignite the chaotic 9-colored flame with his Heartfire, he would be considered to have fully grasped most of the power of this Shenong cauldron. At that time, the great medicine of heaven and earth that he could refine would be called a desolate era treasure medicine. After understanding all of this, Yi Xian was immediately stunned. As expected of a treasure from the primordial era, he didn't expect it to contain the chaotic 9-colored flame. It was no wonder that when he looked at the cauldron from the outside, the mouth of the cauldron was filled with a 9-colored secret fog. It must be related to the chaotic 9-colored flame. He had never heard of this kind of flame before, but since it had the name of primal chaos and 9 colors, it was obvious that it was something extraordinary. This made him even more surprised, but at the same time there was a problem. In order to refine this Shenong cauldron, one had to ignite the 9-colored flame of chaos in the central domain's volcano cauldron. Although he only needed to obtain a 1-colored flame to successfully refine this cauldron, then he would be able to control its size and control it as he wished. Even if this 1-colored flame of chaos could only display 1/9 of this Shenong cauldron, he would accept it now. He only wanted to ignite the 1-colored flame with his Heartfire and refine it first. However, Yi Xian didn't know what the Heartfire was. How could he ignite this 1-colored flame? Depressed, Yi Xian immediately put the Shenong pestle that he had just summoned back into his sea of consciousness. After that, as the 9-colored flame in the central domain's volcano cauldron disappeared, Yixian began to search in the database of the Devouring system. The search condition was all kinds of fire and flames between heaven and earth. If he wanted to successfully ignite the chaotic 9-colored flame with his heart fire, he had to at least understand what the heart fire was, where it came from, and how to control it. As a result, he was once again dumbfounded. After the search condition was given, the Devouring system instantly listed all the information related to the heavenly flames in the system's database. Hundreds of pages were voluminous and extremely detailed. Yixian quickly scanned through with his divine sense. He saw the heavenly raging fire, Samadhi true fire, 6 yang divine fire, 9 underworld fire, Nanmingli fire, mysterious Yin cold flame, and all kinds of flames that he had never heard of before. However, there was no such thing as the so-called heart fire. This time he was completely at a loss. After being blocked again and again, even the anger in his heart surged. Unfortunately, this wasn't the heart fire that the Shenong cauldron had mentioned. Otherwise, with Yixian's current state of rage, not to mention the chaotic 9-colored flame, most likely he would directly ignite the chaotic 9-colored flame. After a long time, although the result was a little more clues, in the end it was cut off here again. There was no way to continue. Yixian was so angry that his nostrils were about to spit fire. He didn't know if this could be considered as nasal fire. After a moment of bad fun, he immediately shook his head and smiled bitterly. It was also at this time that the surrounding figures had already swept over one after another. Even from a distance they all burst out shouting, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, Changyu Xiaotian, and 3 other people came from a direction first. They were extremely excited and shouted, "Oh, brothers, did you see that? That strange scene just now was so shocking." 100 feet long pestle rushed out from the depths of the volcano, accompanied by a 9-colored light. This is definitely the King of Medicine's inheritance. Yes, the King of Medicine's most important item is naturally the medicine pounding pestle. I didn't expect the legendary King of Medicine's inheritance to be hidden in a treasure pestle. If it wasn't for this kid's luck that triggered the treasure, I'm afraid we would have to painstakingly search for it. Ling Huchong, quickly hand over the treasure pestle. We have seen it just now. The treasure pestle was taken into your body. We have many people, so don't take any chances. Otherwise, don't be afraid that this young master will disregard our old friendship and kill you. The 2 women, Purplish Warbler and Duanmu Xiaocha, gathered together at this moment, also quickly rushed over at this moment. Their expressions were strange, but they didn't say anything. Zhao Qianru of Bodhi Technology and Yuan Zhua of Celestial Worthy Creatures came from the same direction. Although their expressions were gloomy, they didn't say anything. The last person, Huangfu Zhua of the heavenly underworld planet's Huangfu family, also shouted from a distance, "Ling Huchong, you are a rogue cultivator. You can't protect the King of Medicine's inheritance. Hand it over immediately, and we will spare your life." Rogue cultivator? If my Linghu family's young master is a rogue cultivator, wouldn't your 16 great families be worse than a rogue cultivator? Just as Huangfu Zhua finished speaking, 4 figures rushed over from the west, full of murderous intent. They were all black hole rank 9 perfection. Humph! Back then, when my Linghu family dominated the dynasty gene fluid field, your 16 great families weren't even worthy to carry our shoes. How dare you be so arrogant today? Bullshit. I am the Linghu family's young master. That Ling Huchong is a fake. Are you 4 blind? Chapter 3251. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Greetings. Young Master Ling Huju's lungs were about to explode when he heard the 4 Clear River Pavilion experts address Yixian as Ling Hu Young Master. He didn't know about Hu Qing's existence. When the Ling Hu family was in trouble, he wasn't even born yet. Ling Hu Young Master who escaped was his father. He was very young at that time, so he didn't know that the Ling Hu family head had saved someone called Hu Qing. In addition, the Ling Hu family had been living in the second universe all these years, so they didn't come back to look for their so-called family members. They had long thought that those who didn't escape were all dead. At the same time, although Hu Qing had secretly inquired about the situation of Ling Hu Young Master's descendants after they escaped, no matter how long he extended his reach, it was impossible for him to extend his reach all the way to the second universe. Besides, even in the second universe, Ling Hu young master's descendants were very low-key and used an alias to travel. Therefore, it was impossible for Hu Qing to find them. For Ling Hu Ju, the sudden appearance of a person calling himself young master Ling Hu was enough to make him depressed. He felt as if his identity had been taken advantage of. Today, he saw and heard with his own eyes another group of people calling this fake young master Ling Hu family head with such seriousness. He was about to explode from anger. Moreover, he subconsciously regarded Yi Xian and the 4 Clear River Pavilion experts as a group. God damn it! They actually dared to take advantage of this Ling Hu family head's name in groups. Who did our Ling Hu family offend? These thoughts flashed through his mind, and Ling Hu Ju even had the intention to kill. No, he had this thought for a long time. However, his killing intent had only locked onto Yi Xian, and now there were 4 more people. He wanted to kill all those who took advantage of the Ling Hu family head's name. Thinking of this, Ling Hu Ju's eyes were about to split open. He stared fiercely at Yi Xian and the 4 Clear River Pavilion experts, gnashing his teeth. You bunch of traitors, how dare you take advantage of my name? This is unforgivable. Today all of you will die. Impudent. Who are you? How dare you speak to the Ling Hu family's young master like this? Humph. A thief calling out a thief. Yet you're still so confident. As a human, you actually colluded with the Yin demons, a race that can't even be considered a race of the Federation, and infiltrated my human race's Universe 3. Such a thief actually dares to use my Ling Hu family's name. You are the one who is courting death. The 4 experts from the Clear River Pavilion immediately flew into a rage and sternly rebuked Ling Hu Ju. At the same time, one of them respectfully cupped his hands towards Yi Xian. Young master, this thief has tarnished the reputation of our Ling Hu clan. He should be killed. Please give the order, young master. The 4 of us will capture him and kill him after we find out who is behind this. This? Yi Xian did not feel good. He knew very well that he was Li Gui. The main character was here. However, it seemed that they did not know each other. Moreover, the guy who called himself Young Master Ling Hu actually had 2 Yin demons behind him. Although the Yin demons were also a race of the second universe, they did not join the Myriad Net Federation. They were both friends and foes of the Federation. Similarly, they were both friends and foes of the Tianji clan in the first universe. From this, it seemed that the real Young Master Ling Hu most likely came from the second universe. Since that was the case, they naturally did not know about the Clear River Pavilion. In addition, it was one thing for the Ling Hu bloodline to hide in the second universe, but they actually colluded with the scheming clan. If this news were to spread, the Ling Hu family's reputation would really be damaged. Forget it. He had more or less received some benefits from them. Since he was using their name, he would help them clean up their house to protect their reputation. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's face sank. He raised his hand and pointed at Ling Hu Ju. He coldly said, "Capture him immediately. If he resists, kill him immediately. There is no need to leave such a thief alive. Next time, just kill him if you encounter him." Yes. The powerhouse of the Clear River Pavilion was also very angry. Yi Xian's words were exactly what he wanted. Immediately, his face lit up with joy. After receiving the order, he turned around and attacked Ling Hu Ju with the other 3 people at the same time. There were 8 people on both sides, all of whom had the cultivation of black hole great perfection. At this moment they were fighting in pairs. It was so shocking that the sky was in chaos. It was impossible to have a result in a short time. Everything that happened before was seen by the others. They had long been convinced of Yi Xian's identity as Young Master Ling Hu. Even the purplish warbler was so. Her eyes were originally shining as she stared at Yi Xian, but now they were dim. She felt a little dejected. At the same time, she was a little unwilling. She secretly thought that she missed that bastard too much. A person who looked so different from him actually guessed that he was a disguise for a few days. You really are a bastard of the Ling Hu bloodline. You even secretly arranged for 4 subordinates to sneak into the Medicine King's remains and squeeze out the quota of the other great clans. Tuoba Linfeng was very surprised. He thought that the 8 people were all Yi Xian's subordinates. Now it seemed that there were only 4. Although these 4 people had the cultivation of black hole great perfection, they were currently pinned down by the other 4 people. They couldn't come to Yi Xian's rescue at all, so there was no need to be afraid. In this case, Yixian was alone. On his side, there were 6 people from the 3 great clans Tuoba, Gongyang, and Changyu. 4 of them had the cultivation of black hole great perfection. In his opinion, Yixian was simply cutting melons and vegetables. Thinking of this, Tuoba Linfeng suddenly grinned. Ling Huchong, I'll give you 3 breaths of time to consider. Either you take the initiative to hand over the Medicine King's inheritance, this young master will leave you an intact corpse, or… What kind of young master are you? You can't even enter the Clear River Pavilion. Sooner or later, you'll be a cripple. Yixian exposed the scars on the spot, raising the greatest hatred in Tuoba Linfeng's heart. 3 breaths is too short. This young master will give you 10 breaths of time. Either you immediately roll over here and beg for mercy. From now on you'll be my slave. Bah, forget about being a slave. This young master can't stand such disgust. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless and purifying the air of the heaven-warring planet. These words were really like the extreme fall. He even used the word kill to purify the air. This immediately angered Tuoba Linfeng and the others. On the side, Duanmu Xiaocha and the others looked at each other speechless. The purplish warbler frowned again. She didn't know why, but she suddenly had a feeling that this person was Yixian. Their style of speech was too similar. Not good, not good. I've really been bewitched by that bastard. This is definitely the rhythm of qi deviation. As these thoughts flashed through her mind, the purplish warbler raised her hand and gently touched her cheek. Sure enough, it was hot, making her feel ashamed and angry. Pooh! Smelly brat, you're courting death. My Tianzhan 3 great clans in your mouth have all become slaves and maidservants? You're simply courting death. Tuoba Linfeng was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He angrily roared and immediately took out his magic weapon. Together with Gong Yangji, Changyu Xiaotian, and the others, the 6 of them charged towards Yixian. Without waiting for Duanmu Xiaocha and the purplish warbler to react, they had already arrived and surrounded Yixian. Chapter 3252. Invincible glazed armor. Second form. Following Yixian's words, the quasi-starry sky treasure, the indestructible glass armor that he kept in the undying world, immediately transformed into an overflowing purple light that rushed out. Under the bright light, it transformed into an extraordinary armor that covered Yixian's body, causing his entire temperament to change in an instant, causing others to be dazzled. At the side, Duanmu Xiaocha and the others were dumbfounded. They had never seen such a dazzling and extraordinary armor before. The armors forged by the cultivator faction were mostly practical, unlike the armor made by the devouring system which pursued perfection. Moreover, this armor had been fused several times, and the advantages of each fusion were all taken in by the devouring system. Just its appearance alone was stunning. Duanmu Xiaocha's mouth was slightly open, and her eyes were full of stars. Heavens, is this still an armor? It's so beautiful. Zhao Qianru, who came from the undying planet, Bodhi technology, was also stunned. At this moment, Ling Huchong made her blush a little. His body was originally close to 2 meters tall and was incomparably tall, but his aura was a little rascally. Now, all his flaws were covered up by this stunning armor. For a moment, Zhao Qianru actually had an illusion, as if a figure that appeared in her dreams had really appeared. As for Yuan Zhua, who came from the undying planet, and Huangfu Zhua, who came from the heavenly underworld planet, both of them had gloomy expressions. Both of them felt the amazement of the 3 beauties present, and more or less, their hearts were disturbed. The purplish warbler, on the other hand, opened his eyes wide, and his breathing quickened. In just a moment, she confirmed Yixian's identity. Isn't he that big bastard? He tricked me so badly I almost thought I was possessed. After all this time, it really was him. Back then, when Yixian fused his armor for the 4th time, he added a piece of purple phoenix glazed armor. That piece of armor was a purplish warbler's personal armor. At that time, Lu Luo had tried to stop him, saying that the armor had the scent of the purplish warbler, so it wasn't suitable to be auctioned. Right now, the purplish warbler was able to determine Yixian's identity precisely, because she saw the shadow of the purple phoenix glazed armor on the indestructible glass armor. At the same time, after confirming Yixian's identity, her cheeks flushed red. That was his personal armor, and now it was on this guy's body. This was really Apart from that, the purplish warbler was even more shocked. Wasn't this guy in the Tenju Celestial Palace in the cultivation camp? Who would have thought that he would suddenly come to the Heavenly Battle Empire and cause such a huge disturbance? He was simply too monstrous. Who would have thought that his talent in the field of alchemy would be so terrifying? Just the fact that he perfectly passed the 3 stages of the Medicine King's tablet was enough to shock the purplish warbler. In addition, this big bastard's talent in alchemy was also terrifying. The last time she saw this armor, it wasn't so amazing. Now it seemed like it was no different from a Starry Sky treasure. It was definitely not just Starry Sky epic grade, but at least quasi-Starry Sky treasure grade. Heavens, this big bastard can actually refine a quasi-Starry Sky treasure grade magic weapon? If so, she must go back and pester him to reforge all her weapons and armors. Keep the goodies within the family. Aya, what do you mean by keep the goodies within the family? It's so embarrassing, it's all this big bastard's fault. For a moment's slip of the tongue, the purplish warbler blushed. When this scene fell into Tuoba Linfeng's eyes, he thought that she was attracted by Yi Xian after he put on the armor. Suddenly he angrily shouted, Ling Huchong, you want to fight 1 against 6 with just a broken armor? Haha, I think you're just a wax spearhead that looks good but doesn't. No matter how good the armor is, this young master will just cut it in half. Chop! Before he finished speaking, a 6-eared saber slashed down from the sky. With a boom, it slashed onto Yi Xian's indestructible glass armor, emitting a loud clanging sound. A fierce force spread out in all directions, shocking the ground below to the point that sand and rocks flew everywhere. However, Yi Xian remained calm, and his figure didn't even sway. As a quasi-Starry Sky treasure grade armor, one aspect was its sturdiness, and the other was its defensive ability to neutralize attacks. On the contrary, after Tuoba Linfeng slashed down with the saber, his figure was actually shaken back. After stabilizing his figure with great difficulty, he looked up and saw the 6-eared saber hanging above his head. It was full of glaring holes, as if it was bitten by a dog. This scene was really unacceptable to him. Tuoba Linfeng cried out, This is impossible, this young master's weapon is a Starry Sky legendary grade treasure. You. Poof! Yi Xian was so angry that he laughed. He glanced at Tuoba Linfeng with a contemptuous expression. Didn't I just say you don't deserve to be called a young master? A Starry Sky legendary grade weapon, you have the nerve to call it a treasure. This young master's armor is a quasi-Starry Sky treasure grade treasure. It didn't break on the spot because this young master didn't activate it. Otherwise, how could your weapon break? Do you believe me, your head would turn into a pig's head? These words were too infuriating. On the side, Yuan Jua and Huang Fuzhou couldn't help but blush slightly. Their weapons were also Starry Sky legendary grade, so wouldn't it mean that they didn't have the face to call themselves young masters? As for Duanmu Xiaocha, the stars in her eyes instantly increased. Heavens, a quasi-Starry Sky treasure? No wonder this treasure armor was so dazzling. Even the old ancestor of the clan did not have such a treasure armor. Moreover, it looked very new. It was clearly refined recently. Could it be that this guy knew a weapon refining grandmaster? No, I must ask him later. This young lady also wants one. It's too beautiful. Hearing these words, Zhao Qianru from Bodhi Technology's eyes suddenly lit up. She was also moved. Which girl didn't like to be beautiful? They also had armors and battle armors, but they were all crude and generally did not like to use them. It would be perfect if they could have an amazing and powerful quasi-Starry Sky Supreme Treasure Grade artifact armor. All this fell into the purplish warbler's eyes. She immediately curled her lips and muttered in her heart, Humph, this young lady isn't even close to the water yet, and you two want to think about it? No way. Then her face turned red again. Using the phrase quasi-Starry Sky Treasure was a bit too much. Damn bastard, it's all his fault. The purplish warbler was going crazy. I'm going to die. Ling Huchong, if this young master doesn't suppress you today, I swear I'm not human. After being humiliated by Yi Xian time and time again, and every single time, he was the one who brought it upon himself. At this moment, Tuoba Linfeng had already gone berserk and was roaring furiously. Together with Gong Yangji, Longyu Xiaotian, and the others, 6 figures simultaneously took out their magic treasures. Most of them were seals, heavy hammers and the like, smashing towards Yi Xian from all directions. Not human. You're right. If you meet this young master, it will be difficult for you to be human. I'll directly beat you into a dog's head. Chapter 3253. Crazy Fatty Beat Boom. As Yixian's final roar sounded out, an incomparably boundless and formless force instantly surged out from the undying glass armor on his body. In the blink of an eye, Yixian's figure had already expanded explosively, and was completely gone. He was enveloped by the undying glass armor that had expanded into a battle armor. The entire mecha was 10 zhang tall, like a small mountain. Its entire body was purple and looked gorgeous. It had a perfect fusion of power and beauty, making people exclaim in amazement. In the blink of an eye, the dazzling battle armor transformed into an equally dazzling battle armor. Mecha were products of refining, and mecha were products of science and technology. Although the human race in the third universe also had mecha, they were not popular. Only the Tianji clan in the first universe had them. No one had ever thought that a mecha could have another form, turning into a terrifying mecha in the blink of an eye. This scene was too shocking and unimaginable. Even Yuan Zhua and Huangfu Zhua on the outside were dumbfounded. Zhao Qianru and Duanmu Xiaocha were breathing rapidly. At this moment, the former's eyes were filled with stars. A supreme treasure armor that could change between mecha and mecha at any time was simply the dream of all strong people. It was just that no one had ever succeeded in refining it. This was no longer just a category of the same field. It was related to different fields such as refining and mecha manufacturing. In the past, no one had ever combined the essence of these two fields to successfully create such a flashy treasure armor. Heavens! There's actually a second form. A treasure armor. Not only a personal battle armor, but also a heavy mecha. This is simply perfect. More importantly, whether it's the first mecha form or the second mecha form, they are both so gorgeous and perfect. It's too amazing. Xin Yuanzing was similarly stunned, and she muttered to herself. Perhaps it was because the shock in her heart was too great, but this time she didn't intentionally lower her voice, and it was heard by Zhao Qianru and Duanmu Xiaocha. Damn it! That big bastard's level of equipment refinement has actually attained such an extent? This is clearly beyond the level of a grandmaster refiner. His progress is too fast. I don't care. Since I recognized his identity, this matter is not over. If you don't help me refine a similar type of treasure armor, I will. You will what? Without waiting for the purplish warbler to finish speaking, Duanmu Xiaocha, whose eyes were filled with countless stars, leaned forward and whispered, Sister Zing, do you know that guy? And from your tone you seem to be very familiar? Yes or no, we all heard it. Was that treasure armor really refined by him himself? Heavens, is there really such a monster in this world? Unparalleled in refining medicine, unparalleled in refining weapons, this is simply unreasonable. Facing the second form of the indestructible glass armor, Zhao Qianru, who had always been reserved, could not remain calm. She also leaned forward stealthily. Seeing that the purplish warbler was about to refute and cover up, she immediately interrupted again. Sister Zing, you have to think carefully. We are all women. You know how jealous we are of such a stunning treasure armor. If you refuse and don't help us hook up with, contact that brat, we will all blabber about this matter. I don't know what we will say later. Ugh. The purplish warbler did not speak anymore. She raised her hand to her forehead, and her face turned green. What the hell is this? Battle armor? And it's actually this huge? It's 10 feet tall. Damn. A fist bigger than a casserole. Ouch. Pooh. Just as Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru were stealthily pestering the purplish warbler to inquire about Yixian's background, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and Changyu Xiaotian, who had just besieged Yixian, began to get beaten up. And it was a crazy beating. Yixian's indestructible glass armor was a quasi-starry sky treasure. Even if it was a magic treasure battle blade of the same level, it would only be able to leave a single mark on it. Unless the user's cultivation was much stronger than Yixian's, they wouldn't be able to use a battle blade of the same level to slash him apart. However, such a flashy thing, Tuoba Linfeng and the others did not dare to think about it. They did not even dare to think about it. At this moment, they suddenly saw a giant purple mecha the size of a small hill, waving a fist bigger than a casserole at them. These 6 people's faces instantly turned green. They screamed and turned around to escape. Even in the process of escaping, one of the fellows was struck in the back by the giant fist of Yi Xian's mecha. He fainted on the spot and fell to the ground. He lost consciousness and couldn't even crawl. Yu Xiaotian directly spat out blood. Just now he took out a heavy seal and smashed it towards Yi Xian's forehead, but in the end it was shattered by Yi Xian's punch. This was a refined magic treasure that was connected to his mind, so it directly backfired. Yu Xiaotian spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura was sluggish, and he also fell to the ground below, losing his battle prowess. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 6 Black Hole Realm experts had been dealt with. Even if they did not die, they could not fight anymore. This feeling of not relying on others and fighting to his heart's content with his own strength made Yi Xian feel proud. His blood boiled as he raised his head and laughed. Ha ha ha. So this is the successor of the Heaven Battle Planet's 3 great clans? Why do I feel like a stray dog? Didn't you just say that you want to kill me and leave my corpse intact? Come, let's fight hand to hand or come together. I don't care. Want to run? Not so easy. You won't leave my corpse intact, so why should I be polite? At this time Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and the other 2 had already fled far away. Their expressions were no different from stray dogs. Although their cultivations were a few levels higher than Yi Xian's, they couldn't do anything about the fact that Yi Xian had a quasi-Starry Sky Treasure level Supreme Treasure armor. Even the Starry Sky Legend level saber had a row of holes in it like a dog biting at a dog. How could they fight this battle? If they did not escape, they would really be beaten into a pulp if they stayed. Unfortunately, escaping was useless because the mecha was a weapon with both short-range and mid-range attack capabilities. No matter how fast they ran, as long as they could not escape more than 100 li in an instant, they would still be within the attack range. In fact, the 4 of them were running for their lives. Their speed was indeed extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they were already 70 to 80 li away, but it was useless. The mecha raised its arms and activated its mid-range attack mode. 2 black energy balls appeared on its 2 fists that were several times larger than a casserole and turned into pillars of light that directly shot out. Xiu! Xiu! The 2 fellows who were slightly behind were directly enveloped by the black pillars of light and instantly turned into nothingness. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji finally escaped more than 100 li away, saving their lives. Chapter 3254. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Domineering Suppression. Heavens! What did I just see? Death Ray Cannon? Isn't that the main cannon of the Interstellar Fortress? Although it's only a miniature version, this cannon is still more than 1 meter in diameter. This is amazing. Perfect. It's simply perfect. Not only is it a battle armor, but it can also shoot out a death ray cannon. Not even a mosquito can escape from it within 100 miles. This young lady is definitely going to get this kind of supreme armor. I won't hesitate to give myself to it. Dream on. At most, I'll be your pimp. Matchmaker. As for whether that big bastard helps you refine it or not, that's not my business. The situation on the other side was shocking. Of the 6 Black Hole Realm experts from the Tuoba, Gong, and Changyu families of the Heaven Warstar, 2 were dead, 2 were injured, and 2 had fled. The Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru had become familiar with each other. The Purplish Warbler was also a woman, so she could clearly feel how envious Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru were of Yi Xian's supreme armor. If she did not make some concessions, there would be no peace in the future. Moreover, she herself was incomparably envious. Moreover, she felt a little guilty in her heart. She felt that if she were to pester Yi Xian by herself, she might not be able to do as she wished. If there were 2 more greasy girls on the same side, then this matter would be completely different. So annoying. So annoying. It was precisely because of this that the 3 girls used this matter as a bond and completely formed an alliance. After exclaiming in surprise, they gathered together and began to plan sneakily. At the same time, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru both swore a Dao oath that they would never reveal Ling Hucheng's identity. Otherwise, they would be stopped in their tracks and would not be able to advance further. This was a very poisonous oath. To cultivators, the binding force was the most terrifying, so Xianyuan Ziying was relieved. She immediately used her divine sense to transmit her voice and told the 2 of them about Yi Xian's identity. Heavens, it's actually. After all this fuss, it's actually my idol. Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru instantly widened their eyes in shock, but they did not dare to say anything else. It would be troublesome if someone heard them. At this point, the beautiful girls' trio was officially established. However, Yixian still didn't know that the first time he exposed the indestructible glass armor, he'd provoked 3 troublesome people. He would have to suffer in the future. After forming an alliance and finding out Yixian's true identity, Duanmu Xiaocha became incomparably active. Even Zhao Qianru, who had always been quiet, felt as if she had just been injected with chicken blood when she found out that she was fighting with an idol. She was just short of screaming. The 2 girls couldn't interfere in the battle because after Yixian finished off Tuoba Linfeng's group, he had already turned around and rushed towards Ling Huju's group of 8. As for Yuan Zhua and Huang Fuzhua, when Yixian revealed the second form of the indestructible glass armor, they'd already shivered and fled into the distance. They'd long since disappeared. These 2 guys were also guilty. When they were in the Clear River Pavilion before, they were also disrespectful to Yixian, but they were not as excessive as Tuoba Linfeng. Now that they saw him so fierce, it was as if he was a Tyrannosaurus Rex that had just been fished up from the deep sea. How could they dare to stay here for long? In the blink of an eye, only Changyu Xiaotian, who had fallen to the ground and fainted, and another Tuoba family Heaven's Pride were left. Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru immediately ran over with the intention of sharing Yixian's burden. As a result, they saw that the Tuoba family Heaven's Pride's entire back was directly smashed by Yixian's giant fist. His spine was broken into countless pieces, and he had already died. Changyu Xiaotian, on the other hand, was still hanging on by a breath. Although he had fainted, he was still a black hole peak 9th stage. As long as he didn't die on the spot, he wouldn't die for a while. As for how much he could recover after waking up, that was another matter. He suffered internal injuries. His magic weapon was brazenly smashed, and the power of the instant backlash was not light. The 3 women directly threw the Tuoba family Heaven's Pride, who had already died, aside and no longer paid attention to him. However, they looked at the fainted Changyu Xiaotan. After all, this guy was the heir of the Changyu family. Whether to keep or kill him would have to wait for Yixian to finish the battle before making a decision. At the same time, far away on the west side of the mountain, 4 powerhouses from Clear River Pavilion were fighting fiercely with Ling Huju and the other 3. The 8 of them were all black hole existences at the great perfection of the rank 9, and they were fighting in a chaotic battle. In addition, there were 2 demon experts among them. This race's attacking methods were extremely strange. In addition to the Black Lightning bloodline innate talent, their figures were constantly changing during the battle. An endless black fog was constantly being emitted. The 8 of them fought for a long time, and this side of the world had long been shrouded in a thick layer of strange black fog. In this strange fog, the 2 demon powerhouses were not affected at all. Even Ling Huju and his other human attendant had long adapted to this strange black fog, because they had too much contact with the demon clan. However, the 4 powerhouses from Clear River Pavilion were different. They had never fought with the demon powerhouses before. In the face of this situation, not only was their vision affected, but even the power of their divine sense was affected to a certain extent in this thick black fog. In addition, from time to time, there would be a black lightning bolt as thick as an adult's arm. It was the same color as the black fog and it was silent. It was simply a supreme secret technique. In the end, it actually caused the 4 Clear River Pavilion powerhouses to be injured one after another. Although it was not serious, the balance of the battle had been heavily tilted. When Yixian arrived, 2 black bolts of lightning coincidentally struck through the thick and rolling black fog. Soon after, 2 muffled groans sounded out. It should be 2 of the 4 experts from the Clear River Pavilion who had been hit again. "You guys come out, this young master will suppress them." Yixian frowned and saw that his side was at a disadvantage. The huge mecha directly rushed into the thick black fog, and the energy in its body surged fiercely. In the blink of an eye, the thick black fog was blown into pieces. This was a huge mecha that was 10 feet in size. After rushing in, it was like a small mountain was flying rapidly. At the same time, there was endless energy surging in the mecha's body, dispersing the black fog as if it was just a game. "You are the young master?" God, where did such a huge mecha come from? This is simply heaven-defying. Ha ha ha. The young master is extraordinary when he makes a move. We will retreat and support the young master. We will definitely suppress these 4 monsters in an instant. When the 4 Clear River Pavilion powerhouses suddenly saw such a huge creature rushing over, they were shocked at first. Then when they heard Yixian's words, they reacted and exclaimed. While laughing, they quickly retreated from the area where the black fog was rolling endlessly. They had obviously seen that this terrifying mecha was extraordinary, so there was no need to worry at all. Chapter 3255. This mecha is extraordinary. The technology of the third universe's human race can't make it. Who the hell are you? Ling Huju could not help but feel astonished when he saw the gigantic mecha charging into the black fog. Its entire body was brimming with energy, and its body was glowing. It looked like a core member of the Tianji clan had descended. However, the voice belonged to the human powerhouse who had impersonated him. Ling Huju couldn't help but exclaim. This mecha can only be made by the first universe's Tianji clan. Humph, you have the nerve to say that this young master is colluding with the second universe's Demon clan. What about you? You're clearly a human spy who is colluding with the first universe's Tianji clan. Bullsh *T your sister. Yixian was furious. He had been slandered by the immortal royal family for colluding with the Tianji clan. Now he heard the same words from a guy who colluded with the second universe's Demon clan. While shouting, the mecha followed the sound and threw a punch with all its strength. Young master, be careful. Bang! Among the 4, the human powerhouse suddenly warned. At the same time, his figure flashed and blocked in front of Ling Huju in the blink of an eye. This person was loyal to protect his master and didn't care about his own life. At this moment, Yixian couldn't help but feel a little moved. He intended to spare his life, but unfortunately, the power of this punch was already spent. It was too late to withdraw it. With a loud bang, this powerhouse with the cultivation of the black hole rank 9 perfection was instantly blasted into a bloody mist. He couldn't be more dead. To exaggerate, not even a strand of hair was left. Since ancient times, loyal people might end up like this. Yixian sighed in his heart, but he was shocked by the power of this punch. In today's battle, it was the first time he used the second form of the indestructible glass armor. Although he had already experienced a big battle before, his punch only faintly grazed the back of the Tuoba clan's genius. Yixian thought that the person was only seriously injured, but he didn't know that the person was already dead. Just grazing the person's back was enough to end up like this. The result of the punch hitting the person's chest could be imagined. Even he was shocked. This was a quasi-starry sky cardinal treasure. Coupled with the battle mech's 30-meter-tall body, it was hard to avoid a direct hit from the battle mech. Not to mention Yixian, even the 4 experts from the Clear River Pavilion, who had retreated to the back to cheer for Yixian, were shocked. Yixian was an expert at the peak of rank 9 of the Black Hole realm. How could he turn into a mist of flesh and blood with one punch? The 4 of them looked at each other in shock. Just how abnormal was this young master Ling Hu? If the 4 of them were like this, then there was no need to mention Ling Huju and the other 2 devil experts. Ling Huju's body trembled as he retreated into the distance, the moment the human expert who had loyally protected his master exploded. He was the young master of the Ling Hu clan, and he had a blood feud on his shoulders. There were too many things he had yet to do, so he absolutely could not die here so easily. That was too unreconciled. At this very moment he had completely lost the will to fight. The terror of Yixian's punch had disintegrated his will to fight. He was afraid of dying, so he thought of running away. The other 2 devil experts were the same. The power of Yixian's punch was too terrifying, and it made their minds tremble in fear. The 2 devil experts emitted an even thicker black mist as they retreated rapidly. Fine black lightning appeared around their bodies, as if they were trying to scare Yixian, forcing him to retreat so that he would not dare to pursue. The Devil clan, huh? I heard that you people are opportunists, swaying to both sides when the wind blows. Yixian had an extremely bad impression of the Devil clan. This clan was very sinister, and they moved back and forth between the Myriad Net Federation and the Tianji clan, trying to curry favor with both sides. It could be said that they were notorious. Unfortunately, they had an extremely special bloodline, and their bodies could change between illusion and reality at will. When necessary, they could transform into the flesh and blood of the human race. Or they could transform into the mechanical body of the Tianji clan, or even into a cloud of smoke or a black lightning bolt. In short, they had a lot of transformations, and they had a unique advantage in certain fields. They were the best candidates for spies. Compared to the demon clan that could only impersonate humans, they were more favored by the Tianji clan. In addition, their existence was destined to be very difficult to kill, so the human race was deliberately trying to rope them in. Unfortunately, this clan's conduct was too vile. They relied on the advantage of their bloodline and tried to curry favor with both sides. In the end, even in the second universe, there were very few clans that were willing to interact with them. However, the real Linghu young master, Linghu Ju, was colluding with these disgusting scum from the Yin Devil clan. Just this point alone made Yi Xian want to kill him. At this moment, in the face of Linghu Ju's sudden retreat, Yi Xian immediately stared at the two Yin Devils. He sneered and suddenly raised his arms. As 2-meter diameter black light balls appeared at the tip of his fists, 2 miniature death ray cannon light beams instantly shot out. In my eyes, you are nothing but chickens and pottery dogs. Isn't the Yin Devil clan known to be very difficult to kill? This young master wants to see if your bodies that can switch between matter and energy at any time can withstand the corrosion of the antimatter death ray cannon. Whoosh! Boom! As soon as Yi Xian's voice sounded out, the antimatter energy beams from the 2 death ray cannons had already reached their target. One of the 2 Yin Devils reacted too quickly. He raised his hand and waved a scapegoat artifact. His figure instantly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already far away. He turned into a black fog and wrapped around the rapidly retreating Linghu Ju. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared into the horizon. His scapegoat artifact was a disc-shaped disc that seemed to be made of jade. It was sparkling and translucent. After being hit by one of the death ray cannon's antimatter energy beams, it instantly turned into nothingness with a boom. However, the other Yin demon expert wasn't so lucky. This person also seemed to have a scapegoat artifact. Unfortunately, his movements were slightly slower. By the time he took out a pagoda-shaped jade artifact, before he could activate it, another death ray cannon's antimatter energy beam had already arrived. It directly corroded his body and the jade pagoda in his hand, completely turning him into ashes. Although the Yin Devil clan's body could freely switch between matter and energy, and could turn into a black fog with a thought, all of this was nothing in front of the death ray cannon. Regardless of whether it was black fog or white fog, at least it was all positive matter energy. Since that was the case, its attribute was repelled by antimatter energy. The death ray cannon's black antimatter energy beam used this attribute to form a super strong destructive force. All positive matter energy that stood in its way would be instantly corroded and melted away until the antimatter energy beam was exhausted. In the blink of an eye, the battle between the two battlefields had completely come to an end. Yi Xian used the second form of the indestructible glass armor for the first time, using the form of a battle mech to kill the enemy. The result could be said to be amazing. Until now, the battle had ended in the blink of an eye, and the 4 experts from Clear River Pavilion were still stunned. Chapter 3256. It's really not me, young master is mighty. Congratulations, young master, for obtaining the King of Medicine's inheritance. There is hope for our Linghu bloodline to rise again. We will definitely regain our former glory. If the old master sees how powerful young master is now, he will definitely be comforted in the underworld. As the battle ended, the 4 experts from the Clear River Pavilion were overjoyed. They came forward and cupped their hands to Yi Xian to congratulate him. Although they had suffered some injuries in the battle with Linghu Ju and the others, both sides were ranked 9 black holes. Their strength was originally on par with each other. The only advantage they had was the strange attack methods of the Yin demons, which made it difficult for them to adapt. After all, it wasn't a terrifying killing machine like Yi Xian's battle armor. Therefore, although the 4 of them were injured, it wasn't a big deal. When they were cheering for Yi Xian, they had already consumed some spirit medicine and were already fine. You were sent by old who? Yi Xian had a strange expression on his face as he purposely spoke ambiguously. This old who could be Director Hu of the Clear River Pavilion, or he could be the master of the Clear River Pavilion, Hu Qing. He was probing and wanted to use this to obtain some information. After all, he still planned to make a trip to the Clear River Pavilion. That's right. It was the pavilion master who sent us. One of them cupped his hands again and revealed the fact that the master of the Clear River Pavilion, Hu Qing, had sent them here. Yixian's heart immediately calmed down. Since it wasn't the intention of Steward Hu, but the will of the master of the entire Clear River Pavilion, it seemed that there would be no danger in the following trip to the Clear River Pavilion. The other party was certain that he was the young master of the Linghu bloodline. If it was before, Yixian might have muttered in his heart, afraid that he would be seen through. But now, with the appearance of that idiot Linghu Ju, Yixian had basically guessed where the remnants of the Linghu bloodline had gone to after they fled from the Heavenly War planet. Since it was the second universe, then even if Hu Qing was a member of the Linghu bloodline hiding in the Heaven Battle planet, he shouldn't have contacted Linghu Ju's branch in the second universe for the past 2,000 years. In addition, 2,000 years had already passed, so there was no pressure for Yixian to disguise himself. After that, the 4 experts from the Clear River Pavilion introduced themselves. Their names were easy to remember. Linghu Ilong, Linghu Erlang until Linghu Silang. Well, I'll call you Ichiro and Erlang from now on. Keep the surname of Linghu a secret. After all, you haven't been born yet, and it's not good to expose it to the Qingjiang Pavilion. Yixian nodded. He was becoming more and more proficient in pretending to be Linghu Young Master. You've come at the right time. The space within this cauldron is extremely vast. We only have a month's time. With more people, it'll be easier for us to search. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry and find the Medicine King's inheritance. Young Master, isn't the King of Medicine's inheritance already in our hands? Ichiro was slightly startled. He felt a little confused. That big medicinal pestle just now. What big medicinal pestle? That's clearly the Medicine King's ancient tablet. I tried to use it to sense the whereabouts of the Medicine King's inheritance, but I found nothing. I almost ignited this volcano. Yixian rolled his eyes and quickly covered it up. There's still a month's time. We should be able to find it. So that's the Medicine King's ancient tablet? Doesn't that mean that Tuoba Linfeng and the others died unjustly? They fought before even seeing the Medicine King's inheritance. Half of them died and one of them was seriously injured. Too cowardly. Without waiting for Ichiro to reply, the Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru who were on the ground below had already come over. Each of them had a sneaky expression on their faces. When the former came close, she even raised her hand and patted Yixian's shoulder. Then she said with a smirk, "Great, you're getting better and better. When did you come back from the Tenju Celestial Palace?" "Great hoodwinker, Tenju Celestial Palace?" Yixian was stunned. He subconsciously glanced at the Purplish Warbler, and his heart immediately skipped a beat. Oh no, I've been recognized. He immediately thought of the indestructible glass armor that he had just used. Although it had been retracted back into his body, it had been exposed for a long time. The Purplish Warbler had already seen through it and must have recognized it. It must be known that when this armor was fused for the 4th time, it was her Purple Phoenix glass armor. Although it had changed greatly, the Purple Phoenix glass armor still retained some of its special characteristics. Others might not recognize it, but the Purplish Warbler could see through it at a glance. That gaze was even sharper than a mouse. Yixian wailed in his heart. He subconsciously put on a straight face and said in a low voice, "Miss, what did you say? This young master doesn't understand. You might have mistaken me for someone else, right?" As soon as this sentence came out, Yixian's heart shook. Oh no, oh no. Pretend. Keep pretending. The Purplish Warbler had a look of disdain on her face. She curled her lips and said, "Don't be so nervous. Haven't you realized that you've already overdone it? Don't you know that this miss is the Purplish Warbler? We've been hanging out together for the past few days." Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. You gave yourself away the moment you opened your mouth. At the side, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru, who were still a little unsure about Yixian's identity, were now relieved. One of them found it amusing and started laughing loudly. The other was even more speechless. What do you mean by giving yourself away the moment you opened your mouth? You're the one who's hiding a horse's leg in your mouth. At this moment Yi Xian even felt like dying. In a moment of nervousness he had really overdone it. At this moment he wished he could just slap himself. He had been too careless. However, although he had given himself away, he could not admit to this matter no matter what. Otherwise, if word got out that Prince Xian had already left the starfield controlled by the Tenju Celestial Palace and ran over to the Heavenly Battle Empire to stir up trouble, that undying Dark Phoenix and Tian Qianzi would probably immediately come over with their knives. He was still hoping to use the identity of young Master Linghu to stir up trouble for a while. At the very least, he should first push the research of the gene cultivation fluid to the 10th or 11th level. If his identity was really exposed, he would have to start escaping again. How would he have the time to care about this? With that thought, Yi Xian steeled his heart. He could not care less about his face burning. He gritted his teeth and shook his head again. Of course I know you. However, you've really mistaken me for you. Miss Xianyuan, I'm not the person you're talking about. I have nothing to do with him at all. You're getting excited, aren't you? In front of Duanmu Xiaocha, Yi Xian actually did not give face again and again. The anger in the purplish warbler's heart also flared up. Her face darkened as she asked in a muffled voice. There was already a hint of threat in her tone. Try saying that again. Really isn't you. It's not me. It really isn't me. Yi Xian's heart trembled. He knew this girl's temperament. Back then, when she knew that he was in the first universe, she actually dared to follow Naples and barge into the Tianji race's territory. Was there anything she did not dare to do? In the end he was nervous and his mouth slipped again. What did she mean by it wasn't him? What was the difference between this and tactfully admitting it? At the side, Ichiro and the other three were dumbfounded. Just as Yi Xian's last sentence left his mouth, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru immediately burst out laughing. As expected of this lady's idol. Chapter 3257. Extortion. Yi Xian could see that the purplish warbler was not the only one who knew his true identity. Even Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru already knew. The words "this lady's idol" had exposed everything. At this moment he wanted to kill someone. One girl was enough to give him a headache. Now that the three of them were in a group, it was simply unimaginable. 3 cobblers were better than Zhuge Liang, 3 crazy girls. Yi Xian felt the hairs on his back stand up. No, he had to trick them. Pui, he had to appease them. No matter what, he had to calm them down. He could not reveal his true identity. Otherwise, not to mention Tian Qianzi and the undying Dark Phoenix, just the Clear River Pavilion side would be enough for him to drink a pot of water. Pavilion Master Hu Qing was not a kind person. To be able to make the Crown Prince of the Heavenly War Empire unable to book a meal, in addition to his means, his strength must be extremely high. Although Yi Xian could now concoct a level 7 fluid, the further he went, the more difficult it would be to concoct a level 10 fluid. Although his current level seemed to be only 3 levels away from level 10 fluid, if he wanted to take that step, he would need to spend a lot of time. He really did not have the energy to deal with other unexpected matters. You 3 come here. This young master has something to say to you. Hardening his heart, Yi Xian raised his hand and beckoned to the purplish warbler trio. Moreover, he glanced at Ichiro and the others somewhat guiltily. The 4 of them were embarrassed. They thought that he really did have thoughts about the 3 beauties of the great clans. In their hearts, they sighed that the young master was indeed the young master. This aspect was equally shocking. When he made his move, he was 1 against 3. While sighing, the 4 of them saw Changyu Xiaotian tied to the ground below. They immediately had an excuse to go down and watch that guy. What's there to watch? Just directly kill that guy. Just now he was shouting to kill this young master. What's the point of leaving him alive? Yi Xian originally did not have a good impression of the Heaven Battle Star's 3 great clans. Now his heart was even more stifled with anger. Under this sort of situation, Changyu Xiaotian could be considered to have suffered 8 lifetimes of bloody misfortune, directly bumping into the muzzle of a gun. Ichiro and the other 3 already had this intention, so they immediately grinned. It was as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They roared and rushed over. What? Now that you know you can't escape, you've lowered your head? As soon as Ichiro and the other 3 left, the purplish warbler crossed her arms in front of her chest and started to tease them. As she spoke, she turned around to look at Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru. Her face was full of pride as if she was saying, Look, he can't escape from me. Madam, can you stop messing around? It wasn't easy for me to sneak into the Heavenly Battle Empire. I still have big things to do. Don't you dare reveal my background. This was not Yi Xian's alarmist words. In just a short while, there were already 3 people inside the Farmer God Cauldron who knew his true identity. How many people were there in total? If this trend continued, it was estimated that everyone would immediately know when they reached the outside. If you want us to keep it a secret, answer a few questions. Without waiting for the purplish warbler to speak, Duanmu Xiaocha on the side had already taken over the conversation. Her eyes were filled with stars as she stared at Yi Xian with a green light. Young Master Xian. Young Master Linghu, is that armor really quasi-starry sky grade? Did you really refine it yourself? Huh. Yi Xian frowned as a bad feeling appeared in his heart. However, this matter was not easy to fool, so he could only brace himself and agree. Yes, it is indeed a quasi-starry sky grade treasure, and it is indeed. I refined it myself. You are awesome. That's awesome. Zhao Qianru's neck was stretched out. When she heard that it was true, she immediately clapped her hands and cheered, scaring Yi Xian so much that he trembled all over and almost fell into the void. You really are a monster. After confirming this, the purplish warbler was shocked again. Her face was full of unwillingness as she stared at Yi Xian with gritted teeth. Then she changed the topic. Alright, let's get down to business. Just now, the 2 of them recognized you first. However, for your sake, this young lady has already negotiated a deal with them. They promise not to reveal your identity, but... Before the purplish warbler could finish speaking, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru immediately came forward. The 2 beauties were as delicate as flowers. As they spoke, their eyes shone with a green light, causing Yi Xian's hair to stand on end. But you have to refine a treasure armor for us. It has to be as beautiful as yours. That's right, it has to be a starry sky grade treasure and have the second form of a mecha. Of course, the death ray cannon is also a must. That's impossible. Yi Xian didn't even think about it and shook his head. Do you know how many times I have to refine this armor? If you don't believe me, ask Xing. She has seen what it looks like before. It took me a total of 6 times to get to this point, and it took me more than half a year. In addition, if you want to refine such a treasure armor, you have to prepare suitable armor of the same type or fuse with some rare minerals before you can refine it. Let's not talk about other things. Just for the second form of the mecha, you have to get a mecha first. Otherwise, do you think this young master can make one appear out of thin air? As for the death ray cannon, it's fine if the mecha is fused with it. If not, even if the fusion is successful, it can't be helped. This young master can't make the death ray cannon appear out of thin air. We know that. We've already prepared for it. This time it was the purplish warbler who took over the conversation. She waved her hand and said, I have some understanding of your refining style. It's a step-by-step process. This means that we have the time to collect the same type of armor, mecha, and minerals that need to be fused with each other. This time we'll give you the 3 prototype armors first, along with a material that can be fused with each other. You can refine it the first time, and we'll immediately go and collect a suitable second fusion material. That should be enough, right? Anyway, we're not in a hurry. You spent more than half a year on the first one, and 3 of us sisters should be able to refine these 3 in 3 years. Didn't you just say 2? Why are you suddenly adding another one? Since he'd already said this, Yi Xian could only nod his head and admit it. He could tell that Xianyuan Ziying was taking revenge on him. Previously, he had indeed made her suffer enough. He reckoned that she was furious and held back a stomach full of evil fire. Today he had vented it all out. Alright, if you think this young lady is blackmailing you, then 2 it is. The purplish warbler shrugged. With a nonchalant expression she added, Don't worry, this young lady is your friend. I definitely won't blabber when I go out. It would have been fine if this sentence was not added, but after it was added, Yi Xian felt uncomfortable. He quickly shrunk his neck and smiled bitterly. Don't. Isn't it just 3 pieces of armor? Fusing them in batches won't take much time. The purplish warbler beamed. Are you sure? Yes, I'm very sure. Chapter 3258. What is Heartfire? Seeing that Yi Xian finally agreed, the 3 girls were very excited and immediately handed over a small space box. Yixian used his divine sense to check it, and found that the 3 small space boxes contained 2 women's armors. The characteristics were roughly that one was sturdy and the other was gorgeous. He immediately shook his head and smiled bitterly, and then put away the 3 small space boxes. If it was someone else, he really wouldn't agree to this matter. Today, he should give face to the purplish warbler. He did bring a lot of trouble to these girls before, so he should do something. Besides, he couldn't offend all of the 16 top families in the Eternal Dynasty. He had to make friends with a few. Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru were good choices. The 2 of them seemed to have a good relationship with the purplish warbler. With the latter as the middle link, Yixian could ask them for advice if he had any problems in the preparation of the gene fluid. Although he had refined the Shenong pestle and even had the opportunity to obtain the Shenong cauldron, in terms of the preparation of the gene fluid, the tens of thousands of years of experience of the top families were still very useful. At certain critical junctures, Yixian could avoid detours. Thinking of this, he felt much better. After all, he had the fusion system, and the materials used for the fusion were provided by the 3 girls themselves. At most, he would need to consume a little of the energy required for the fusion and waste a little time. It was not a big deal. By the way, I heard you say that Changyu Xiaotian was seriously injured and captured? Where is he now? After dealing with this big matter, Yixian finally remembered Changyu Xiaotian and asked casually. Upon hearing this, the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru all rolled their eyes. On the ground below, Ichiro and the other 4 powerhouses from the Clear River Pavilion seemed to have seen that they had finished talking. Just now, the 4 of them had gathered their heads together and were very ambiguous. Now that they finally separated, the 4 of them breathed a sigh of relief and rushed over. As soon as they got close, Ichiro cupped his hands towards Yixian, his face full of excitement. Young master, fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. I've already taken care of it. That brat is really not a thing. He was still insulting you before he made a move, but I twisted his neck in anger. Huh? His neck was broken? You mean Changyu Xiaotian? Yixian was dumbfounded. Did he give this order? How could he not remember? Duanmu Xiaocha couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. The purplish warbler on the side was still rolling her eyes, but Zhao Qianru sighed and said sarcastically, Alas, a wronged soul. On the side, Ichiro and the other 3 looked at each other, and didn't understand what was going on for a long time. Since Changyu Xiaotian was already dead, Yixian was naturally not interested in murmuring about this matter. After a little hesitation, he turned to look at the purplish warbler and suddenly asked, By the way, Xing, do you know what is the fire of the heart? Fire of the heart? The purplish warbler was stunned and subconsciously replied, In medicine, the fire of the heart refers to the fire caused by the depression of the 7 emotions, or caused by the invasion of the evil fire. There is also a saying that the heart is the fire of the earth. However, if you want to ask about the fire of the heart in the field of alchemy, at this point the purplish warbler spread her hands. I don't know about this. There is an ancient record in the field of alchemy that does have the fire of the heart, but what it is and how to ignite the fire of the heart is not described in detail. The concept is very illusory. It seems that the fire of the heart is not a real flame, but an illusory thing. You can only rely on yourself to understand it. Damn. Asking was equivalent to asking for nothing. Yixian rolled his eyes and finally muttered to himself, turned to Ling Huilong and the other 3 and said, This young master has to comprehend the fire of the heart here. You guys stay here and look around. See if you can find any clues about the whereabouts of the King of Medicine's inheritance. In addition, Tuoba Linfeng and Ling Huju have escaped and may be hiding in the dark. Be careful of their sneak attack. A total of 20 people entered the Shenong cauldron this time. Excluding those who were killed by Yixian and his own people, there were only 7 hidden dangers outside. Ling Huju and a Yin demon expert, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and another black hole expert from the Changyu family. Apart from them, there was Yuan Zhua and Huangfu Zhua. Although this group of people was not enough to cause trouble, if the 7 of them gathered together and attacked secretly, they would still be a threat to Ling Huilong and the other 3. Don't worry, young master, we will be careful. Ling Huilong cupped his hands and quickly left with the other 3 to explore the surrounding area. The purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, And Zhao Qianru also did not want to miss out on the King of Medicine's inheritance. After chatting with Yixian for a while, they said that they would look around nearby and quickly left. Yixian was not in a hurry. He did not care about the King of Medicine's inheritance. The most important thing now was to comprehend what the fire of the heart was. Otherwise, he would not be able to refine the Shenong cauldron, and that would be too regrettable. With expectations, he quickly sat down cross-legged and did not cultivate. Instead, he frowned and began to comprehend. The medical explanation that the purplish warbler said before was naturally not reliable. The Shenong cauldron was a great medicine that could stimulate the potential of the human body and dig out the treasures of the human body. How could it only have a medical effect? However, the explanation that she put forward later was more credible. Yixian also did not think that the fire of the heart was a real flame. Wouldn't it burn the heart and liver? Could it be that the heart referred to the mind and thoughts? If he analyzed it from this perspective, the fire of the heart was an invisible fire that was triggered by the divine sense. Thinking of this, Yixian immediately became excited. Without hesitation, he immediately sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. He concentrated and entered a state of cultivation where he forgot everything. After his consciousness entered the sea of consciousness, Yixian's primordial spirit also sat down cross-legged in the sea of consciousness. Unknowingly, he had forgotten the existence of time. Walala. Even so, his cultivation base had already reached black hole level 1, and his physical strength had reached black hole level 5. With the combination of the two, his combat strength was close to that of a late-stage black hole. Even if he didn't use the combat armor, he could still fight a black hole level 7 Star Master. At this level of cultivation, Yixian's sea of consciousness had been extremely vast. At this moment, his primordial spirit was sitting cross-legged in the sea of consciousness. At a glance, it was like a small leaf dancing on the tip of the rolling waves in the vast sea. Above, the Rai seal and the Shenong pestle were slowly rotating in the central area. Around them were the spirit source core, the void essence crystal, the black gold dragon scale, and the golden bow. He did not know how much time had passed. Originally, everything in the sea of consciousness was as usual. However, at this moment the Rai seal, which was suspended in the empty territory above the sea of consciousness, suddenly exploded with a bolt of green lightning. It fell into the rolling waves of the sea of consciousness below. Perhaps it was because of this sudden bolt of green lightning. The other treasures also poured out different rays of light or mist at this moment and fell into the sea of consciousness below at the same time. This included the Shenong pestle that he had just refined and collected not long ago. Chapter 3259. Inheritance of the Medicine King. This gray ball of chaotic fog was extremely mysterious. It was guided by some kind of power of the Shenong pestle, and mixed with the aura of all of Yixian's abilities and bloodline inheritance. In the end, it flashed and manifested a small cluster of gray chaotic flames in his primordial spirit. At this moment Yixian was enlightened. He finally understood what the heart fire was. It was a wisp of primordial spirit fire that was ignited in the primordial spirit by using all of one's abilities and inheritance. But now, although he had understood the heart fire, he could only be considered to have completed half of it. If he wanted to refine the Shenong cauldron for himself, he still needed to use this wisp of primordial spirit fire to ignite the Shenong cauldron volcano in this cauldron. The Shenong cauldron flame had 9 colors. Each additional color would double its power. To refine this cauldron, Yixian only needed to ignite 1 color of the Shenong cauldron. But this was easy to say but difficult to do. This was because the wisp of primordial spirit fire that Yixian had just obtained was too weak. It was even smaller than the smallest flame core. Once it was sent out of his body, it would be immediately extinguished by a weak mountain breeze. Yixian opened his eyes and took a deep breath. He wrapped the wisp of primordial spirit fire with his spiritual sense and carefully floated towards the cauldron volcano in front of him. Unfortunately, the mountain breeze was strong and the wisp of primordial spirit fire was too weak. Yixian did not dare to wrap it with too much spiritual sense to prevent it from being extinguished. In the end, it only floated halfway before it was completely extinguished. Damn it, this is too torturous. Yixian cursed softly. He was incomparably gloomy. He almost wanted to rush into the cauldron volcano in front of him to refine the primordial spirit fire. If that was the case, once the primordial spirit fire was successfully refined, it could directly float to the depths of the volcano without being disturbed by the mountain breeze. But that was too dangerous. The scene of the 9 colored flames rising into the sky from the cauldron volcano was still fresh in his mind. This mysterious Shenong cauldron must be extraordinary. It seemed to be ignited from the depths of a volcano, but it was definitely not an ordinary volcano. This volcano was also not an ordinary volcano. It existed in a primordial treasure-level heaven and earth cauldron. Who knew the power of the Shenong cauldron? If it really ignited the primordial spirit fire, he would not even have time to escape and would be roasted alive. After hesitating for a while, Yi of Yixian, he did not dare to be recklessly. The spirit fire of the heart cauldron fire was. After trying 7 or 8 times in a row and spending half a day, he finally succeeded. The weak wisp of primordial spirit fire that Yixian wrapped around with his divine sense withstood the test of the mountain wind. It was much more condensed than before and successfully entered the heart of the furnace volcano in front of him, disappearing without a trace. Boom! Almost at the same instant that Yixian lost contact with the spiritual sense that was wrapped around the primordial spirit fire, a loud thunderous roar resounded from the enormous furnace volcano in front of him. Then Yixian saw a sudden burst of light in front of him. An orange flame rose from the depths of the cauldron volcano, illuminating the vast space inside the cauldron with an orange color. Half the sky seemed to have been ignited. The first color of the flame was orange. It was done. Yixian was excited. His body flew up. Just as he was in the air, a familiar system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The 1-colored flame has been successfully ignited. You are now qualified to refine the Shenong cauldron. Do you want to refine it now? Refine it now. Without the slightest hesitation, Yixian immediately gave the order to the system. Although less than a day had passed in a month, there would be a change if it was too late. This was related to the Shenong treasure cauldron, so he didn't want to cause any trouble. After receiving a positive reply, the system immediately established a connection with the internal domain of the Shenong cauldron and began to refine it. All of this was done quietly. Domains were similar to the magnetic field of heaven and earth, but they were of a higher level. Ordinary magic treasures had their own unique abilities. Even the concealment and defensive formations engraved on warships could be called domains. However, they were the lowest level of domains. Primordial artifacts like the Farmer God Cauldron and the Primordial Inheritance Pagoda had even more advanced domains. To put it bluntly, the power of domains was actually the self-imposed laws within some treasures and artifacts. Although they truly existed, they were invisible and intangible, unable to be touched. At this moment, Yixian's devouring system had completed a connection with the internal domain of the Shenong cauldron and began to refine it. However, apart from Yixian, no one else could sense it. Even if the 15th realm Qianquan realm expert was right beside him, he was completely unaware. Moreover, there was no need for Yixian to interfere. Without occupying his attention, Yixian could completely let go and do other things. It was only now that he suddenly realized a problem. The orange Shenong flame in the furnace volcano in front of him had been steaming ever since it had been ignited. The horizon was almost burning red, but it had not been extinguished. Yixian only knew how to ignite this Shenong flame with his primordial spirit, but he had no idea how to extinguish it. Perhaps this was because the Shenong cauldron had not yet been refined, so he could not control everything within the cauldron as he pleased. As such, even the devouring system had not given him any notifications. And now, the resources of the devouring system had been used up. It was fully focused on refining the Shenong cauldron. Even if Yixian took the initiative to ask at the last moment, there would not be any reply. F***CK. This orange flame seems to be burning more and more fiercely. There's already a scorching sensation in the air. Nothing bad will happen, right? Thinking of this possibility, Yixian's face faintly turned green. If he were to accidentally roast himself or become a vicious beast material in the Shenong cauldron to be refined into a cauldron of heaven and earth medicine, wouldn't that be too unjust? The entire area occupied by the furnace volcano was not small. It was located in the central area of the space within the cauldron, and nearly 2/3 of the area was occupied by this huge furnace volcano. At this moment, the entire volcano had been ignited with an orange flame. Billowing waves of flames rushed into the sky like a volcanic eruption. The momentum was really amazing. It could be seen from every corner of the space within the cauldron. As long as there was an existence in this space, they must have been alarmed long ago. Yi Lang and the other 3 experts from the Clear River Pavilion flew over from afar, with a look of surprise and uncertainty on their faces. In another direction, the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru were also quickly returning. The 3 beauties' faces were all red, which was caused by the gradually rising temperature in the cauldron. They looked extremely attractive. The 2 groups of people approached. Just as they landed, before they could make a sound, a green light shot into the sky from the peak of a mountain in the north. It was clearly a jade ruler that emitted an ancient and heavy aura. The Medicine King's inheritance. It's finally appeared. Quick, don't let Tuoba Linfeng and the others take it away. Chapter 3260. Snatch the heritage. When the orange-red flames of the furnace volcano in the central region shot up into the sky, the other 7 people who were hiding in other places in the cauldron space were also alarmed. Ling Huju and Ain Devil expert, Tuoba Linfeng, Gong Yangji, and another black hole realm powerhouse from the Changyu family. There was also Yuan Zhua and Huangfu Zhua, who were temporarily working together. There were a total of 7 people, and all of them looked up at the sky in shock, not knowing what had happened. Immediately after, before they could recover from their shock, in the depths of a mountain range in the northern region of the cauldron, a green light shot up into the sky. It was exactly the same as the green light emitted by the Medicine King's tablet, and even its aura was the same. Within this green light beam there was clearly a jade ruler. It exuded an ancient and profound aura. On its surface, there were faint shadows of some herbs and fierce beasts. Such a phenomenon was already very clear. Anyone who saw it would immediately associate it with the Medicine King's inheritance. After all this time, this is the real king of medicine's inheritance. Ha ha ha. Ling Hu Chongkong is overjoyed. The opportunity is still there. We have not missed it. Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji were overjoyed, and immediately laughed heartily. Their current location wasn't too far away from the northern side of the cauldron space. In terms of competing for the jade ruler that soared into the sky, they held a great geographical advantage. Amidst the laughter, the 3 of them immediately rose into the air, turned into a long rainbow, and sped toward the mountain range in the northern region. At the same time, a cloud of black fog rolled over from the western region of the space inside the cauldron. A figure could be seen within it, and his expression was extremely gloomy. It was Ling Huju. In the direction of the eastern domain, Yuan Zhua and Huangfu Zhua also summoned their respective magic treasures and rushed over at full speed. However, Yi Xian, the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru were all located in the southern region of the cauldron. They were the furthest away from the mountain range in the north where the green light shot into the sky. At this moment, the central region's furnace volcano in the cauldron space was erupting with an intense orange flame. The heat flow was rolling and it was impossible to directly cross it. One had to go around it, and thus the distance between them was even greater. Before Yi Xian's group of 8 arrived, the battle for the Medicine King's inheritance near the northern mountain range had already begun. Tuoba Linfeng, Ling Huju, and Yuan Zhua, the 3 groups were caught in a chaotic battle. Even the sky within the cauldron was disturbed. Swish! A flying sword rushed out from the thick fog and slashed towards Tuoba Linfeng. The latter quickly retreated. Just as his figure moved, a black bolt of lightning descended. It was extraordinarily fast, far faster than the flying sword. Ling Huju and the Ain Devil expert had joined hands. This was a sure kill attack. Be careful, young Master Tuoba. Beside Tuoba Linfeng, the Black Hole Realm Master from the Changyu family immediately warned. Just as he was about to summon a small golden shield, Gong Yangji, who was behind him, suddenly slapped his shoulder. Caught off guard, the Black Hole Realm Master from the Changyu family staggered and shot towards the black lightning bolt that was heading towards Tuoba Linfeng, as if he had taken aim. The Ain Demon Clan's Black Lightning has the ability to lock onto the target with divine sense. If it doesn't strike the target, it will follow the target like a shadow. Lin Feng, you were careless. Gotcha. Just as Gong Yangji's sinister words rang out, a bone-chilling explosion of lightning rang out. The black hole realm expert from the Changyu family was struck head-on by the descending black lightning, and was instantly annihilated in both body and soul. His entire body withered, and all of his vitality and blood essence transformed into a black mist that drifted towards the black mist that was enveloping Ling Huju. Today none of you will live. Within the thick black fog, a sinister voice sounded, causing people to feel a chill down their backs. What pure vitality and blood essence! The essence of a black hole realm master is indeed extraordinary. If this was outside, how could it be so easy to kill a core master from the Changyu family? GGG. This old man feels like he's about to break through. Once this old man steps into the origin realm, none of you will be able to escape. Even that fake tortoise hiding in the battle armor is no exception. Swish. As the voice of the Een demon powerhouse rang out, a sword light once again shot out from the thick black fog, heading straight for the green light in the distance. While the Een demon clan master attracted the attention of Tuoba Linfeng and the others, Ling Huju, who had just pretended to launch an attack, revealed his foxtail. It turned out that he had been staring at the jade ruler in the green light all this time. The flying sword he had just summoned was just for show. Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji had just retreated in another direction, and were unable to chase after him for a while. Seeing this scene, Yuan Jua and Huang Fu's expressions changed greatly. If this fake young master Ling Huju was allowed to seize the jade ruler, with the Een demon clan master's strange speed, the Medicine King's inheritance would most likely be lost forever, and would fall into the hands of the Second Universe's foreign races. This was absolutely unacceptable. You thief, colluding with the Second Universe's foreign races and deluding yourself to steal our human race's inheritance. You're dreaming. Brother Huangfu, let's join hands and attack with all our strength and kill him in one fell swoop. Yuan Jua and Huangfu were furious. The former took a step forward and successfully used teleportation in this space inside the cauldron. In the blink of an eye, he was behind Ling Huju. This must be caused by the activation of an artifact, otherwise, it would be impossible to teleport here. As soon as his figure arrived, Yuan Jua raised his hand and blasted out a punch, hitting Ling Huju's back, causing him to open his mouth and spit out a mouthful of blood. Ling Huju's face was as pale as gold paper. He was seriously injured by this blow. You can actually teleport. Raising his hand to wipe away a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth, Ling Huju's eyes were about to split open at this time. Just as he was seriously injured, he knew that he had already snatched the green jade ruler that contained the Medicine King's inheritance. A trace of resentment flashed in his eyes in an instant. He roared ferociously, "If this young master can't get it, none of you can. Brother Yuan, hold him back. This little brother will go and get the jade ruler. You and I will share it later and study it together." Just now, Huang Fuzhua was the one who shouted the loudest at Ling Huju, but at this moment, as Yuan Jua activated his artifact and teleported behind Ling Huju, severely injuring him with a single punch, Huang Fujua's shoulders shook, and his figure flickered as he changed direction, turning into a streak of light that rushed towards the inheritance jade ruler. In the blink of an eye, his figure had disappeared into the turquoise pillar of light that shot into the sky. Seeing this scene, Yuan Jua's expression changed greatly. Only now did he realize that he had fallen into a trap. He was actually used by Huang Fuzhua. This guy was too insidious. He instigated him to use an artifact to perform teleportation to intercept Ling Huju, while he went straight for the jade ruler that contained the Medicine King's inheritance. Huang Fuzhua, you're shameless. Chapter 3261. Chapter 3261. Chapter 326. Demon Trick. As Yuan Jua and Huang Fuzhua rushed into the green light pillar, Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji, who had been forced back by the Een Devil clan's experts, were immediately enraged and roared like thunder. "Son of a bitch, I am in front of you, but you are picking the peaches from behind. Do you have to be so shameless? Damn it, Yuan Jua, Huang Fuzhua, if you dare to steal my Heavenly Battlestar's secret inheritance, even if you leave this giant cauldron space, don't think of leaving. Give up now and you can study it later. Don't make a mistake." As the two spoke, Yuan Jua's cold voice came from the green light beam. "Brother Gong Yangji, you don't have to worry about this. Since this young master has the courage to pick the peaches, I naturally have a way to leave safely. Poof! Huang Fuzhua, you are shameless, you actually sneak attacked me. Halfway through his words, Yuanjue suddenly let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood, followed by angry curses. Obviously, the battle inside the turquoise light pillar had not yet ended. Yuanjue and Huang Fuzhua, who had rushed in one after the other, had not yet obtained the treasure but were already fighting amongst themselves. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Tuoba Linfeng and Gong Yangji, whose retreating momentum was exhausted, swung their spears at Ling Hujue and blasted out a seal-shaped magic weapon. It turned into a 100-zhang tall mountain and forced Ling Hujue to retreat. Then one after another they rushed into the green light beam. Boom! The golden sword ray flashed and disappeared. The seal magic treasure lost control and was easily knocked back by Ling Hujue. It was as if a 300-meter-tall mountain had been cleaved apart from the center, causing countless fragments to fly out. However, the flying sword that Ling Hujue unleashed again was also destroyed as a result. It turned into a dazzling golden star that scattered in all directions. This guy seemed to like sword-type magical treasures very much, and he had a lot of them with him. At this moment he was in a hurry. In order to blast open the 100-zhang tall mountain formed by the seal-type magical treasure as quickly as possible, he actually didn't hesitate to use a golden flying sword to self-destruct, instantly resolving the obstacle in front of him. This Medicine King's remains was first discovered by my Linghu clan. More than 2,000 years ago we came here to explore. None of you can think of taking away everything here. The King of Medicine's inheritance can only be obtained by my Linghu bloodline. Otherwise I will destroy this ancient site. Ling Hujue's expression turned gloomy when he saw that 4 people had already rushed into the green light pillar. He was about to rush in before he could finish his sentence. However, a black fog had already arrived behind him. The Yin Devil clan's expert had arrived. Young Lord Linghu, with this old man here, no one can take away the King of Medicine's inheritance today. Don't forget, my Yin Demon clan has invested a lot in joining hands with you this time. In the thick black fog, a gloomy old man's voice sounded. His tone seemed to be extremely confident, as if he was very sure about the backup plan that he had said. Ling Hujue's figure stagnated as if he suddenly thought of something. A sinister expression appeared on his face as he took over the conversation and said fiercely, I almost forgot about this. This time Serene Master has really invested a lot. Even took out. This is clearly the rhythm of completely turning against the Third Universe's human race and even the entire One Luo Federation. With such determination, if I can't get the King of Medicine's inheritance this time, how can I go back and see him? Heh, it's fine if I get the King of Medicine's inheritance. Otherwise, once I use the immortal poison, not to mention this cauldron space, even the huge Heavenly War Empire, or even the entire immortal dynasty will be completely turned into a land of death. On that day, my Linghu clan was almost annihilated. Don't think that this young master doesn't know that the dynasty is secretly plotting behind it. If you really force me, this young master won't hesitate even if it hurts the harmony of the world. After speaking, Ling Hujue turned around and took a step forward. With a shake of his shoulder, he rushed toward the green light beam in front of him. It was also at this moment that an earth-shattering change occurred. Puff! At the same moment when Ling Hujue turned around, the Yin Demon clan powerhouse behind him once again turned into a thick black fog. As it rolled, it condensed into a black long saber with monstrous demonic aura. With a reverse edge, it pierced through Ling Hujue's back in the blink of an eye, bringing out a rain of blood. After a sudden turn, it rushed straight toward the green light beam. You a puff. Ling Hujue's figure that had just swept forward suddenly paused. His face instantly turned pale. He subconsciously looked down at the big hole in his chest, raised his finger, and pointed at the black demonic saber in front of him. He only said one word. Then he suddenly spat out a blood arrow. There was clearly some minced meat in it. These were fragments of internal organs. With such a serious injury he would definitely die. At the edge of the green light beam, the black demonic saber suddenly paused and once again dispersed into a thick black fog. In it, the voice of the Yin Demon clan elder came out again. Ling Hujue, do you really think that my clan's venerable didn't hesitate to use the supreme secret immortal poison just to help you get the King of Medicine's inheritance? How naive. Seeing that you are about to die, why not tell you the truth? After all, I will let you know the truth. Venerable's meaning is very clear. My demon clan is determined to get the King of Medicine's inheritance, but in addition, since the immortal poison has been brought to the third universe, it must be used. Otherwise, how can the human race be in chaos? If the human race is not in chaos, how can the races of the second universe's federation be determined to invade the third universe? If they don't send troops, how can my demon clan have the chance to dominate a plane like the Tianji clan? Ha ha ha. Are you shocked? Go in peace. My demon clan will remember this contribution of yours because the culprit behind the release of the undying indestructible poison can only be you. This sin is too great and my demon clan cannot bear it. Ha ha. When he was proud of himself, the figure of the demon clan suddenly swayed and changed into Ling Huju's appearance in the blink of an eye. He was so beautiful that no one could recognize him. I hate you. Bang. At this point, Ling Huju finally understood everything. When he thought that he would have to bear this huge black pot after death, be cursed for eternity, and be the culprit for the destruction of the human race in the third universe, he could no longer control his mind. Blood foam spurted out of his mouth as he roared toward the sky. As the last sentence came out, his figure exploded, turning into a mist of flesh and blood. This mist of flesh and blood exploded, but before it could spread out completely, it seemed to be suppressed by an invisible force and quickly shrank back. In the end, it turned into a thick black mist. In a flash, it rushed straight toward the demon clan powerhouse who had transformed into Ling Huju's appearance and plunged into his body. You're really giving it your all. Not only are you taking the biggest scapegoat in the history of the Devil clan, but you're also converting your cultivation base, vitality, and vital energy into Devil energy. It's like resources that will help me reach the origin stage. Little friend Ling Hu, thank you. Ha ha ha. While laughing, the demon clan powerhouse who had transformed into Ling Huju's appearance suddenly released a terrifying and majestic pressure. It was clearly the unique aura of an origin realm powerhouse.